A serious point, right? See this time tomorrow.
But this is not really serious, is it? Giving away money's fun.
No, I know, but like we have to be super well organised tomorrow.
Yes.
Because I have Airwin's experts announce their winners, the big grand prize, and then we've got Secret Sound, and then we've got $2.5 grand. So it's going to be.
So, who's doing the sport tomorrow?
Chris, we need to tell him to keep it tight. Condense it. Give it to me in 3 words.
So, are you saying you want to do all 3 things between 8:30 and 9?
No. We'll announce it. I just nabbed Neve out there. She's going to give us a hand with the Airwin expert electrical draw, and we'll do that after 9. And then we'll do the.
No, you're not doing it after 9.
Well, after 8. Sorry, I see I'm all fussed already. And then after 8, shortly after 8, we'll do the Secret Sound a bit earlier. And then just, is that all right with you?
I don't know why you don't do the Secret Sound and the cash draw after the sport before the news at 9.
I'd be super stressed out, but I can't be late for that Greg Hughes.
Yeah, but what about then the young ones in the car heading to school waiting for the Secret Sound? It's on too early. What do you think?
Don't know.
Should we just... It's up to you. It's your show.
But see, I can't be late for 9 o'clock. That boy gets cross.
Well, sure, look at...
Big crab at them.
I'll have 10,000.
And Friday's the busy ones. He has all them Zoom calls, all those people coming in and stuff.
You decide, because you are the boss, and then you let me know.
I did decide, and then you changed my mind.
So Secret Sound shortly after 8?
Yes.
And then the other...
Yes, the big stuff.
Stuff.
It's $2 grand in that nearly Secret Sound as well. 1,800.
Massive. Potentially prizes worth over $5 grand on the.
And then you have 10 grand. And then you're away to London living the life of it in your trendy t-shirts.
I'm at work. See, this is what people in this building don't understand. I'm going to work.
Oh, here we go. Play the fiddle. Caroline, do you hear this? You're going to London for the weekend. And he says, I says, make sure you iron your shirt. I said this to Greg. He says, I think I'm going to go cash over the weekend.
It's polo shirts, stuff like that.
See that?
It's a very serious job. We're live from London between 12 and 2 on Sunday for the London Vintage Show.
Yeah.
Loads of guests, loads of crack and stuff.
It's going to be good.
Yeah.
This is your 3rd year going over, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Brilliant.
So it's always a brilliant event. So hopefully loads of people are over there. I know they are anyway. The weather, 23 degrees. What do you think about that?
Oh, so it's work, is it? You're taking off Monday because it's work? Right, okay.
Lee.
Good luck.
Goodbye.
I told you about chemistry. Good luck.
All right, good luck. That sounds like abuse, not chemistry. All right, we'll be back with the start of the show after a news update. It's just 9:02. Apologies, Donna Marie Doherty.
Thanks, Greg. Good morning. 3 Donegal CAMHS teams had the lowest staffing levels, with 1 team without a psychologist, social worker and occupational therapist. The Mental Health Commission has published its latest review into child and adolescent mental health services. It examined 9 community healthcare settings across the HSE and found 4,451 children and teens are waiting access to services. All in all, 49 recommendations have been made, but John Farley, CEO of the Mental Health Commission, believes CAMHS can be turned around.
Written to the Minister, to the Department and the HSE. There's 49 recommendations which, if put in place, can really ameliorate the issues that have been found. We're also asking that a strategy is put in place for CAMHS and for youth mental health services, and we're also asking that CAMHS is regulated. If these steps are put in place, we'd be confident that we can rebuild CAMHS and make sure that CAMHS is effective throughout Ireland.
The death toll on Irish roads this year has risen to 125, up 45% on the same time in 2019. A 3-year-old girl died after she was hit by a car in Portlaoise yesterday afternoon in what was already a tragic week on our roads. A 3-year-old boy and his grandparents were killed in a crash in Clonmel on Tuesday night, just 30 kilometres away from where 4 young people were killed in Clonmel last Friday. Meanwhile, a man in his 40s also died in Carrowray Bridgend on Tuesday morning as a result of a single car collision. Superintendent Liam Geraghty from the Garda Press Office says they're anxious to curb the upward trend in deaths and serious injuries.
So far this year we have recorded what we consider in excess of 600 serious road traffic collisions. And when we say serious road traffic collisions, these are people who have suffered injuries that are life-changing. So while, yes, the fatalities do make the news, there are hundreds of people out there every year suffering serious injuries as part of road traffic collisions.
The HSE has confirmed that there will be no nurse or GP available on Tory Island today, as was previously scheduled. It's due to the helicopter being grounded for essential maintenance work, with no second helicopter available to make the journey instead. The HSE says it is putting interim measures in place and has apologised for any inconvenience caused. The helicopter is expected to be operational again by this next scheduled flight on September 14th. Cahirlock of Glenties Municipal District, Michael McClafferty, says better organisation is needed to prevent this in the future.
It sends out a very bad news story today and last night when the word broke there that no nurse or GP will get to the island. But it comes into question, why is this maintenance just happening to be falling in days that are going to Tory? They need to sort out the maintenance schedule better. They need to, whoever is dealing with the servicing of the helicopter, needs to get the diary better in order, to be fair about it.
For weather, generally overcast and wet today with outbreaks of rain and drizzle. Moderate to southeast winds and highest temperatures of 15 to 19 degrees. That's all for now. Don't forget the latest local breaking news can be found on our website, highlandradio.com, while your next on-air update is at 10 o'clock. Until then, good morning.
Every week, National Lottery players raise over €4 million for good causes across Ireland.
Cut. You said 4 million every week.
It is €4 million every week.
€4 million?
Uh-huh.
It must be a typo. Can you check
I'm
this?
telling you, every week, over €4 million is raised for good causes.
All right. No need for a Marty meltdown.
I'll ignore that. Every week, National Lottery players raise over €4 million for good causes across Ireland. The National Lottery. Support responsibly. Based on 2022 financials.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio. And now, it's time for the talk of the Northwest, The 9 till Noon Show with Greg Hughes on Highland Radio.
Hello, good morning to you. 6 minutes past 9, Thursday, the 31st of August 2023. It's the last day of meteorological summer, and it's a wet one, but the first weekend of autumn is going to be really quite pleasant. It's all very exciting, isn't it? I hope you're all very well this morning, and I hope you all got out safely for work and school, or you're all tucked up at home, or you're already at work, or whatever your situation may be. I'm just glad that you're with us here on the 9 till Noon Show. We're here for the next 3 hours, keeping you informed, entertained, and updated on everything that's happening across the region, across the country and beyond. Later on, our farming expert, Paul, not farming, he's probably a farming expert as well. I've tasted his spuds. Later on, our gardener Paul will be in studio answering your questions. So if you have any questions for Paul, getting in touch with us nice and early as well. That and so much more besides. The lines are wide open for you right now. You can give Caroline and Niamh a call on 07491 25000. That's 07491 25000. Or you can WhatsApp or text 086 60 25000. 660 25000. I mean, Lee, chatting before 9 about the mega summer cash draw here at Highland Radio. It all wraps up tomorrow. We've got €12,500 to give away, €2,500 on the naughty alarm clock, €10,000 on this programme at around about 11:30. Now, the nature of us is that we leave things to the last minute, don't we? So there shall be a rush on tickets tomorrow for those that want to be in both draws, of course. And that's fine. The website can accommodate all of that, but some of you might prefer to give us a ring or call in, right? So if you need, if you're going to do that, if you want to be in both draws, you probably need to be getting on that right now. I get my tickets online anyway, just in case your internet goes down or something along those lines. Highlandradio.com, you'll see the banner there to buy the tickets. It is for fun, and it's only if you can afford it. €10 per ticket. You get an extra ticket for 50, an extra 2 for 80. So if you want to group in with other people and increase your chances, that's completely up to you. On the website, really simple, safe and secure. If you want to give us a call, the number 07491 25000. We can process your card, again, safe and secure over the telephone. And if you want to call in and grab your ticket the physical way, call up to us here, Mountain Top, Letterkenny. But as I say, that's during office hours, and if you want to do that, I'd suggest you do that today. Let's look at the front of a busy Thursday morning of newspapers. The Tyrconnell Tribune, as you'd expect from John, we had the benefit of his knowledge on the show yesterday, and you can read it in today's paper. 14 shiny new seats, 4 more constituencies, increased numbers on the election register, and plenty more clangers in Wednesday's Boundary Commission report heralds a new era in Irish politics, but obviously not in Donegal, where there was no roll of the dice to come up with the magic number of 6 deputies in the next Dáil. Significantly, the Boundary Commission has said it was time to start the conversation about whether constitutional reform was required to address the issue of the increase in the number of TDs due to the constitutional position that there must be 1 TD for every 20 to 30,000 people. Now, bottom line is that can be changed, and I think the appetite is out there for it to be changed. I would expect they start considering and discussing that now. It's locked in for the next general election. Nothing's going to change in that regard, but moving forward. More election analysis from the Donegal Democrat. Councillor Barry Sweeney believes the decision to keep a population of more than 9,000 from Donegal within the constituency of Sligo-Leitrim has effectively ruled out the possibility of him running for higher office in the Dáil. And that's, it's not just a case for Barry Sweeney. That means effectively that Ballyshannon, Bundoran, Pettigo, up to Lahey, Ballantrae, Rosnara, all of those areas will be officially represented by a TD that may be based in South Sligo. Well, anyway, reading on, it also would not encourage locals to run for office with little chance of success. The other county councillor from the area, Councillor Michael McMahon, added. In a review of the constituency boundaries, the Electoral Commission announced on Wednesday that there would be no reintegration with the rest of the county, as a 6-seater constituency was not allowed for the next Dáil Éireann elections. Now, that is not at the whim of the Electoral Commission. They can't say, yes, right, 6 seats. That's a law situation, so it's the government that needs to change that. And members of smaller parties and independents are going to say, well, why would they? Because this current setup and the way things are being decided seems to suit them really quite well. On to the Derry People Donegal news. A popular swimming event due to be held last weekend in Rathmullen was cancelled due to high levels of E. coli in the bathing water at the beach. Swim Ireland, who organised the annual inch-mile swim, contacted participants to say that in the interests of safety, the event was being rescheduled. The decision followed a detection of elevated levels of E. coli, which was flagged during routine water sampling conducted by Donegal County Council. So the obviously it's good to see that the system works, but what is causing that pollution? I think most people have a fair idea. The Derry news this morning. Derry City and Strabane District Council's decision to host the Waterside Half Marathon every 2 years instead of annually as part of a cost-saving exercise has been described as shameful. The council revealed this week that the event will now alternate with the Strabane Lifford Half Marathon every year, with 2023 the last year that both events will take place together. It means that in 2024 the Strabane Lifford Half Marathon will take place in lieu of the Waterside Half Marathon, which will then return in 2025 in place of the Strabane event. Is that something that you have an opinion on? Let us know. 08660 25,000. Very important, depressing news in the Irish Daily Mail today. Child mental health services are on the brink of collapse due to staff burnout, leading to unsafe services in some areas, a damning review has found. The Mental Health Commission published 9 further reports today into the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service, known as CAMHS, for each community health care area. Last month, an overall report found children are subject to a postcode lottery in getting essential mental health care. Dr. Susan Finnerty, the review author, said after her inspection, she could not provide an assurance to parents that their children have access to a safe, effective and evidence-based mental health service. Okay, so a person who's responsible for reviewing the CAMHS service made this statement. She could not provide an assurance to parents that their children have access to a safe, effective and evidence-based mental health service. That is shocking and shameful. Sligo, Leitrim, Donegal, Cavan and Monaghan, they are grouped together as Community Healthcare Organisation 1. Some of the findings as it relates to those areas: serious concerns around the management of clinical files in one team, which brought a risk that children would be lost to follow-up care. The review found there were no electronic clinical files for teams in this area. No electronic clinical files. One team's facilities were cramped with a waiting area on the corridor, and it was dark and dilapidated. So that would be what people would see in our area in some instances when they went for that CAMHS care. On to the Irish Times this morning. Congratulations to everyone out there if you achieved your goal, your ambition as it relates to CAO offers, and hopefully as well if hopefully you got sorted for accommodation and stuff. It's a stressful time for everyone. It's a joyous and wonderful time as well when everything goes well, but there's an awful lot of challenges at the moment. But hopefully you're out there, got exactly what you wanted. If you didn't, thankfully we do live in a time where there are different pathways to achieve your goals now. But almost 6 out of 10 CAO applicants have secured their first choice college courses this year. It's an increase on last year when just over half did so. A total of 59% secured a first choice, up 5% on last year. 85% received one of their top 3 course preferences, up 4% on last year. CAO entry points reflect supply and demand for individual courses as well as the grades achieved by applicants. So most coming out with what they wanted. But that doesn't, of course, take away the situation for those who didn't. Let's go to the Irish Independent now. And fewer than 1 in 6 of our children are meeting the recommended physical activity guidelines of 1 hour of moderate to vigorous activity per day, new researchers found. So fewer than 1 in 6 children are meeting those recommendations. Just 15% of children are getting the required amount of exercise, 23% of primary students and 12% of post-primary students. The figure is an increase from 2018 when 13% met the guidelines, 17% of primary and 10% of post-primary students did as well. I mean, obviously now we're heading into the winter. Should there be more of that physical exercise in the school? We hear all the while how it's good for people's physical and mental health. It's hard to meet those criteria as the nights draw in and the mornings are dark as well. The Irish Farmers Journal this morning, farmers could be paid for the carbon they capture and store on their farms. New carbon farming legislation received the green light from the European Parliament's Agriculture Committee on Wednesday, clearing the first political hurdle in Brussels. It'll see a framework put in place for the certification of carbon storage on farms and establish a carbon trading system. Now, let's go to the red top tabloids here. If you're a VHI customer, and we have a low uptake of private health insurance here in Donegal, but if you do have VHI, unfortunately, it's another bill that's going to go up for you. VHI has revealed it will increase health insurance premiums by 7% from October. The firm said the rise is due to inflation and a significant increase in demand in healthcare as a result of the pandemic. VHI has over 1.2 million customers. It's the second hike they've faced this year, with premiums rising by 4.8% in March, having dropped by 3% in 2022. What typically do you pay for health insurance? Like, how much is it per month? I wonder, because then you sort of think how much that might be. Someone out there will let us know. For an average family, how much is it? I should know, of course, but I don't. 086 60 25,000. More news on RTE suffering its slump in payments. This is the Irish Daily Mirror. RTE has recorded its biggest weekly fall in licence payments as numbers collapsed from 14,394 to 8,615 for the end of this month. So I would say lots of people here in the Northwest haven't paid their TV licence. I think we are a rebellious county. I think we sort of think for ourselves. We think outside the box. We don't mind taking a stand. I wouldn't be surprised, and it'd be very interesting to see a county-by-county breakdown if, the figures are even greater here in the Northwest. Well, the 5,779 person slump in renewals or new purchases represent a 40% fall and is in danger of leaving a black hole in the broadcaster's finances of up to 50 million. And it's kind of a little bit of a strange situation we find ourselves in that many of you out there are in protest saying, I'm not paying that money anymore, stuff that. But we do end up paying anyway because they're going to get a huge bailout, probably 50 million, if not more, in the budget in October. So whilst we're talking there about mental health services for children, that 50 million, 60 million, this is not our fault, would probably go some way to addressing some of those issues. It's actually instead going to be paid to people like Keith Duffy to go and get his teeth done, or go and do a documentary about getting your teeth done in Turkey. It's a crazy old world we live in. Lastly, in the Irish Daily Star, what would you say, or who would you say are the fans most likely to leave matches early across the Premiership now? This is an English story, really, a British story. It doesn't focus on LOI. Well, Manchester United, many people may not be surprised. Their fans are most likely to leave a game early, followed by Arsenal, Man City, Tottenham and Chelsea, Everton, and in sixth place, Liverpool. Wolves fans, they hang around longer than anyone else. Sheffield United, Nottingham Forest, Newcastle, Luton, Burnley, Brentford. Those are the most loyal fans to stick towards the end. So it seems if you're used to success in sport, the team was Roy Keane right about the prawn sandwiches. If you're used to success, you're less tolerant of a defeat. Arsenal ranked second, followed by current champions Man City, in a survey of fans who honestly said what they really thought of so-called part-time supporters sneaking out before full-time. Almost a quarter of fans admitted leaving a game at least once early last season. United fans were voted the earliest leavers, but have also had the longest second-half stoppages from this season, data showed. Okay, whatever that proves. All right, then. We'll be back with more on the 9 till noon show after the break. Stay right where you are.
Courtesy of Kelly Centra Mountaintop Letterkenny, the 2022 C-Store National Off-Licence of the Year.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low-rate car loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
Country Sundays at the Clanry Hotel, Letterkenny. Sunday 3rd of September, Jimmy Buckley and his band. Sunday 10th of September, David James and his band. Doors open at 8:30 with dancing from 9 till 11. Admission €15, pay at the door. B&B plus ticket only €70 per person sharing. Country Sundays at the Clanry Hotel, Letterkenny.
Imagine a device so innovative, you're... Accept cookies? There is a device so forward-thinking, you... accept cookies? A device that is so modern, you... accept cookies? Now imagine a technology where cookies don't get in the way of your advertising. Welcome to radio. Advertising that's cookie-free. Visit radiocenterireland.ie to see what radio can do for your product or brand.
Cash for carbon. For more in this week's Irish Farmers Journal, here's Paul Mooney.
New EU laws set to pay Irish farmers for carbon captured in hedgerows, trees and soils. Forward store cattle trade on fire. Last chance for farmers to burn bushes before ban. Genotype rams in demand with prices up over €100 per head. And as the CAO offers land, we explore student grants, where to stay and alternative routes to college.
Plus, don't miss your special Back to College guide in this week's Irish Farmers Journal. You cannot afford to miss it.
With electrified finance rates available exclusively at iMotors. Find out how affordable our used electrical vehicles are with finance rates from 3.9% on all used electrical vehicles at iMotors. Low finance, no fuel bills. Doesn't it sound like the perfect second car for your household? Call in to Letterkenny or Malin to find out more or visit imotors.ie.
Highland Radio time checks with Expressway. Travel Route 32 from Letterkenny to Dublin when you book online and travel for less. Expressway, bringing you the time at...
Okay, the time now is 22 minutes past 9. Let us discuss Airbnb and its impact in County Donegal. Derek Nolan is head of public policy at Airbnb Ireland, and hopefully he can join us now. Good morning to you, Derek.
Very good morning, Greg.
Good to have you on the programme. Okay, so Airbnb has been crunching the numbers, and what does it mean for the Irish economy?
Well, thanks, Greg, for having me on the show today. So what we did was we handed over our data for 2022 that Airbnb would have, and we handed it over to a group called Oxford Economics, who are an independent economic research unit. And we asked them to give us some details on how those people who stay with Airbnb, how those people in Donegal, for example, who share their homes or share properties, and how the impact that has on the economy and what it means for communities across the country. And what we saw very interestingly, and was a surprise to us, was that a big shift has happened in where people are choosing to stay. It used to be the case that Dublin was the hotspot, whereas we're now seeing a huge dispersal of tourism from the major centres to places like Donegal. And it's having a big impact on the community in terms of money being spent and jobs being created. And in fact, Donegal was one of the biggest beneficiaries of this. We saw that in 2022, guests who came to Donegal spent €38 million in the county. And that was on the back of what we call guest nights. So how many people stayed in a place for how many nights. And that was on the back of 379,000 guest nights. So that's people coming to Donegal for those nights, spending 38 million euro in 2022. And then that created approximately 550 jobs. So for those of you listeners who are listening to us today, what does that mean? Well, it means that about 550 people who are working in Donegal today, that those jobs are on the back of tourists coming, spending money in coffee shops, in craft shops, in tourist attractions, on boating excursions and so forth. And that's having a very positive impact on the Donegal economy, keeping people in jobs, but also making sure that Donegal gets its fair share of the tourism economy that, particularly in rural and regional Ireland, is so important to communities and so important to livelihoods.
In terms of its contribution to the overall tourism market, in terms of people's stays here, do we know the breakdown there? Hotels, different types of accommodation, and where Airbnb accommodation sits in there.
So on a kind of a national level, we would know that Airbnb accommodation accounts for about 6% of all guest nights. Now that would be bigger outside of Dublin because obviously there's a lot more hotels in the larger urban centres. What we've seen is that Airbnb gives the ability for villages that don't have hotels, areas that don't have guest houses, to kind of have 2 or 3 Airbnbs can make a huge difference to a local shop or to a local pub. Or to a local cafe. So we're seeing that kind of dispersal of tourism. We're seeing that particularly a big figure, which I have to say I was even surprised by. So 10.5%, so like 1 in 10 of every euro spent by an international tourist is spent by a guest who stays in an Airbnb. And that's where you're starting to see what we call that kind of high value spend. So your tourists who come for longer, it's their big trip. So they're coming over from maybe the States or they're coming over from Europe and they're staying a while, and they're what you call your high value spender. So they're spending a lot of money, and we're seeing that almost 3/4 of that spending is coming from that cohort, which is really good quality spending in terms of they're spending a while, they're in the community, they're not just coming for a night and leaving again.
Do we have any idea nationally? I wouldn't expect you to have regional figures in terms of properties on Airbnb's website. My notion of it when it all first started was people sort of renting out a room in the house, but what is the sort of makeup of it now in terms of houses versus part of someone's property versus a converted shed at the side of a house or something, and I mean fancy, I don't mean just an old shed, don't get me wrong, but do we have an indication as to sort of the makeup of the accommodation that's provided through Airbnb in Ireland?
So we ask our hosts when they're putting a property up to put up they have kind of two choices. One is to say, is it a room in your home? In which case they click a private room, or the alternative to say, is it an entire property, an entire home, we call it. An entire home encompasses, as you say, Greg, it encompasses someone's holiday home that they're not using at the moment and they put up on Airbnb. Someone's own home, which is becoming increasingly popular, which they put up on their property for a few months of the year that they know they can make some money, and they're going on holidays themselves or they're going away. As you say, a big one, chalets, converted barns, granny flats that have been turned into really good bespoke accommodation. In rural Ireland, yurts, tents, and even on our platform we have bespoke hotels, and B&Bs use our platform as a good way to market. So we have all of that different contribution in terms of, but because of how we classify it, we don't know whether it's a converted barn or what it is.
It's just either a whole property or it's okay. I get you
exactly. That's how we classify it.
Now, obviously, the in vogue thing to do at the moment is to sort of compare the amount of Airbnb properties available in a region or a county or a country versus the long-term rents. Now, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I mean, I don't have any skin in the game, but this is people's private property that they're working hard for, they're investing in. It's up to them. I think most people might agree, or maybe they don't, to do with it what they will. It is their asset, not the government's asset, nobody else's asset. But do you think it's fair, or what is your take when sort of the amount of properties available on Airbnb are compared to the amount of long-term rents that are available in a particular region? Do you think that's fair, or is it comparing apples and oranges?
I think I'd go with the latter on you with that one, Greg, that it's apples and oranges. The first thing I would say is that there's a kind of an assumption that one Airbnb is should be one top long-term rental property. And as I've just outlined to you, that's not the case. A lot of people do this seasonally. And they share a room in their home, or they share a converted garage, or they share, a flat, a segregated part of their house, or it's their own holiday home. One of the big things we would see in the likes of Donegal, where it's so beautiful, and Irish people have had a tradition of having, because it's just so beautiful, of having a second home in Donegal, is that when they're not there, they put that property on Airbnb. So it's without fail that family, often with, connections to Donegal, maybe would have been they lived there originally and had to move out. That property would be guaranteed booked for a month during the summer when the kids are off school. When they go down to see the parents, always booked at Christmas, always booked at Easter, and in the time when it's not booked, then they put it on Airbnb and keep, I suppose, help to pay the bills for that one. And then you have the other kinds of converted areas that simply aren't suitable for long-term rental. Some properties are only suitable for use during the summer. So you do have that mix. So I don't think it's fair to compare the two.
But we don't know. Say, for instance, the government were able to heavily regulate this area like they have tried to, but I believe at this point that's being overruled by the EU. We don't really know, do we, if Airbnb were completely made illegal, for an example, how many long-term rental properties may then become available? Because obviously there are lots of people actually exiting that market because it can be quite a difficult one to operate in.
I think you're right. I think, when I'm on shows like yours and in a public discussion, the housing discussion often comes up, and I think it's an important one to discuss. The first thing I always say is, people sharing their properties in Airbnb is not the cause of the housing crisis. It's certainly not, is it? It's not. But there is a kind of a concern that people want to know is if there are rules in place around housing and what you can use your property for, that they're being followed. And there is a sense that in some cases that isn't always what happens. There's two questions really that I think need to be asked, and I think this is particularly pertinent to Donegal, which is as I said in the figures, probably one of the main beneficiaries of guests staying on Airbnb and probably doing the best in terms of jobs and spending and getting the benefit of the tourism euros. How do you balance that with people's concerns about housing? So the first question is, who should be able to do Airbnb? And the government hasn't really settled on that yet. There was a kind of talk late last year about everyone requiring planning permission. There's talk of new planning guidelines being required, because I know that there's people in Donegal who will say, yes, we've got issues with housing, but we've also want to make sure we keep the benefits. So how do we get that balance right? So one is, what are the rules? And I think we're waiting on the government to come back with some guidelines on that, particularly as it relates, as I say, to rural Ireland. And the second thing then is, once we have those rules in place, how do we make sure they're enforced? And that is something that I think the government is working on. As you say, Greg, there was an issue in Europe last year where the government was asked to hold off on that. And what the government is essentially trying to do is what every other country or city or state in the world that has regulated short-term rentals has done. And I just want to say we support them doing this, is to put in place a registration system. So those who can do Airbnb and are supposed to be doing Airbnb are on this register. We have a way of knowing who they are and therefore whether we should let them on the platform or not. And that will allow, I suppose, people to know that, well, if you're on Airbnb, you should be on Airbnb. And if you're not supposed to be on the platform, you're not.
Okay.
But I think the big thing is to find out and get that balance right, because it really matters to the 550 people who are employed in Donegal as a result of these tourists, getting that balance right about protecting those jobs and looking after housing concerns. And I think that's a discussion that's very important to have.
Yeah, you're listening to Derek Nolan, the head of public policy at Airbnb Ireland. Thank you very much. Stay where you are if you don't mind, Derek, because we're bringing into the conversation now Donegal councillor Micheál Colm-McGillen-Asperg, who's been vocal on Airbnb in the past and has been waiting patiently to have his say on this. What is your view? And I suppose, having listened to Derek, Micheál, has your view changed in any way, shape or form?
Máidín Whiteid, Greg agus Máidín Whiteid, Derek Foster, is Cormaigad, Funyan, Jesho. Look, it's interesting. Caroline sent on the report to me last night. As you know, I'm not the best of readers. I did try to go through it a wee bit. I certainly welcome, and it's good to get a breakdown of figures and where things are at in terms of Airbnb in the county. It's good to get that data and the footfall, the spend, where roughly they're going and that. But first thing I would say is Derek's 100% right. It's not the Airbnb's fault that we have homelessness. And that's without a shadow of a doubt. that lies solely with government's neoliberal policy in terms of looking after the interest of landlords. And when I say landlords, I mean the bigger end of landlords. I'm not talking about maybe my neighbours who have a house that was maybe willed to them. But there is a discussion that has to be had around Airbnb. There is a discussion that has to be had around tourism in the community that I represent, is an Gaeltacht, Gaelic-speaking community, socially and economically deprived community, a community that is forced roughly from 17 to 18 years of age, right on up until you're near your 60s, are forced to emigrate to the four corners of the earth, unfortunately, which leaves us with a very quiet place during the winter. And that itself has a social impact on our community. But I do think that there has to be a strong discussion around the impact of tourism and Airbnb that it does have on our community. And yes, housing is one of them, but it's not just housing. There's also the impact in terms of the cost, the rising cost that a tourist destination brings to the local community, a community that's born and reared here, that has no skin in the game, as you said yourself, Greg, earlier. So it costs us, when you become a tourist hotspot, it costs us that extra 20 pence on your pint. It costs us that extra fiver on your meal. It costs us colossal amount of money when you don't have your own land and you watch your own children who hopefully will stay at home and doesn't or hasn't to immigrate, who can't afford to buy land. Because we can't afford to buy land because what we're seeing is that people from maybe Belfast, people from overseas, people from Dublin, Cork or Sligo or whatever are starting to invest into a cheaper housing market and then renting that house, or not home, but a house because it's an investment, out to Airbnb.
And what is wrong in them doing that? That is their money. They might have a distrust of banks. They might not trust pension funds. What is wrong with someone going out, breaking their back to earn money, buy a property, do up a property or whatever, and then rent that out on an Airbnb? It is their property. They can do with it what they want. What is wrong with that?
Well, if you look at people who break their back day and night when they have 2 or 3 jobs and they're trying to keep a mortgage or barely pay a rent with the high cost of it, and then they can't see their children being able to buy land because of tourism. And it is...
Yeah, but that's because of a lack of investment.
So
is that not a lack of investment from central government in that ensuring that we have decent road networks into the west of the county, that we have decent broadband infrastructure, that IDA do some site visits in the county and try and get some businesses in here, that we have a local authority that is building affordable social housing, that we have mortgage companies that are fair, that allow people to borrow at decent rates and to build properties, that we change planning laws so that you can actually build on your own land rather than having to see if there's another property local before you can actually do that. I mean, there's 1,000,001 things that a government needs to do to support and enhance rural Ireland. It can't surely come down to the fact that someone wants to do with what they want their own property, i.e. rented out to Airbnb.
No, look, with the discussion here that I've been invited to participate here with Derek Nolan is around the report or the report that they released there this last day or two around Airbnb. As a local councillor, I feel obliged that I have to say that not everything's rosy in the garden when it comes to Airbnb. And again, I am not opposed to Airbnb, absolutely not. I use it myself at different times, and I see my own friends coming from different parts of the country or abroad, and they use Airbnb. So I'm not opposed to Airbnb. What I am opposed to, or what I'm not opposed to, but what I am struggling with massively is the lack of conversation that we're having in terms of how tourism affects our community. Like I says, and I outlined earlier on, a social and economically deprived community who has vast immigration forced upon us. So tourism, as a council, would see it as I'm losing. I don't have the terminology, but
I know what you say. You see it as they see it as an industry and a business.
Yeah, they see this as a 1-1 situation for tourism. Let's pump as many tourism into Western Donegal, our beautiful, beautiful islands, our beautiful culture and our language and heritage, and the terrain that we live in, from Anyarigal to Lanhotty. But the difficulty I'm having is that we're not having a discussion and a proper constructive discussion around the other aspects of tourism that we do see and hear often from maybe Europe, from the heavily tourised areas and say the likes of Catalonia or the Basque Country or maybe in Cornwall. And it's interesting to read some of the reports that's coming out of Cornwall in terms of holiday homes and Airbnbs. And that is not a community that I want to see for my own community.
I want to come back to you, but just before you probably move on to another point, I want to come back and sort of see what Derek Nolan sees Airbnb's role in all of that. Derek, you may agree or disagree, maybe even agree with much of what Micheál Colm is saying, but I mean, what do you think? Do you think Airbnb has a role in this, in creating the problems he talks of in a rural area?
Well, I think first of all, I have to say I admire Micheál Colm's passion. You can just hear the concern about his constituents, and like that's always something to be respected. And I actually think that what Micheál Colm is talking about is very valid, and is a discussion that's happening all over Europe. As you said, the question is, tourism comes and people spend money and they create jobs, and that's good. But there are questions in spots all over Europe about over tourism, and at a point where it gets that tipping balance where the good and it isn't worth the cost, as they say. I'm not in a position to judge. I don't live in Donegal. I go there a lot, but I don't live there. So as to I'm not on the ground living, trying to make earn a crust, as they say in Donegal. So, as I did say though earlier on, it is that question of what is the balance, and I think that's a little bit to what Micheál Colm is saying: is what is the balance? What is the point at which we say that there's not enough? And I think when it comes to Airbnb's role. And I should just say for the point to your listeners, and I know Micheál Colm and yourself, Greg, knows this, but Airbnb is a platform. The properties are owned by people in Donegal or people who have a property, who are from Donegal or have invested, as Micheál Colm says. What is that balance, and how do we get that right? And I think that is a very valid discussion to be having. And just what I like about what Micheál Colm has said, and I've discussed this with politicians in the past, and you often get one Airbnb is one Airbnb too many. But what Micheál Colm is saying is, how do we get the balance right? Because he says he's used it and he sees the benefit of it. And I think that is a discussion that is very worthwhile having across the tourism sector.
Micheál Colm, though, you're quite closely politically aligned, though completely independent of Thomas Pringle, Deputy Thomas Pringle. He has said he would tax Airbnb out of it effectively and incentivise people to switch these properties to long-term rentals and really, as frank as that, he says, tax them out of it pretty much. Are you of that mind?
Well, first and foremost, I can't speak for Thomas.
No, I did draw a strong distinction between the two of you.
The operative word here is independent. And yes, I do work closely with Thomas on a lot of stuff, but Thomas can speak for himself. But for me, where the difficulty is, and I'm not exaggerating this, I got a message on my Facebook page from a mother of 4 young children this morning, and I'm not exaggerating that I was really absolutely moved. And the message basically is that she felt she failed as a mother, which, if she's listening, you have not failed as a mother. You're a fantastic mother. And I've been working with the local housing authority here tirelessly to try to house them 4 children and the mother and the partner. And the difficulty is that we can't get houses now. We can't get long-term housing. And I'm not putting the blame on Derek, and I'm not certainly putting the blame on individuals who have been willed a house and they're trying to put 3 or 4 children through college themselves, and they're really struggling. But what I am really struggling with is the fact that you can pay up to €2,000 a week for Airbnb now in Donegal. And that has a roll-on effect that those that might stay in the long-term rental market has increased the value or increased the rented cost to such a price now. I saw a house in our own area lately there for long-term rental for nearly €400 a week. Now, my time working away from home, both in England and other parts of the county, your rent would have been roughly around less than a day's pay or thereabouts. We are now forcing people in our community, a community that our wage base is one of the lowest in the Free State, who, if you work in a factory, you're taking home about 400 to 500 quid a week, roughly. You're not going to get much better than that. We're asked now to pay over a half of our weekly wage towards rent. And that's not talking about the high cost of fuel and electric and goods or food and all that there, and school and cars and insurance and all them other things that we all know about. And that's only after happening when the tourist industry, when West Donegal was marketed heavily, an area that we talked. Look, Greg, how many times have I been on your show talking about, come from Derry, you're an hour away, you can have sitting on a pint, you can be sitting in Tessie's pub drinking a lovely pint, or over in Castleknock or wherever eating beautiful lobster or steak or whatever your preference is. And I'm not against tourism. I travel a lot myself. But it has a roll-on effect, and we can't deny it, and we need to have an open discussion around that there.
Yeah, for sure.
So the idea, let me finish on this, please. Sorry, my apologies. But the idea that we're paying now hundreds upon hundreds of euros a week just to rent a house, where 2-3 years ago, your average house was around about 400 euros a week to rent. Even at that, it's still expensive. But now they're looking for 1,200 quid. They're looking for 1,200 euros a month, 1,500. Personally, and I know I'll be criticised for this, but I don't really care. That is immoral for me.
I'll just say one thing.
We have a duty to make sure that our communities function well, and we look after those less well off.
You also have to factor in that many of the tourist areas that you talk of now have had all of or half of 60% of their accommodation taken away by the state to house refugees. And it is probably the likes of the Airbnb sector that's kept some of these places heads above water at all, and CAMHS and takeaways and treks and all that stuff. Because if it was down just to the public sector, there's many places around Donegal that would have seen no trade because there was nowhere for anyone to stay, because the state decided the best solution to an accommodation crisis for refugees was to take hotels out of the equation. Dylan, come in there. I'll come back to you on that
question.
No. It was more of a rant, but if you want to answer it, go ahead.
I'm a bit fond of a rant myself. But yes, look. First thing, I'd like to state very clearly that refugees are welcomed in our community. I think they're a great addition to our community. I think that there has to be a discussion around the long-term accommodation for people from other. They're not refugees; they're human beings. And I don't care if you're from Palestine.
But there does also need to be a wider conversation about balance. You're talking about the balance of tourism and local communities. We do then have to have a broader conversation about the balance between an increased population and services, etc. If we're going to have all these conversations, some are probably getting more popular than others. Yeah.
I'm interested in talking to Taylor yesterday just in relation to this, and it was a very kind of brief conversation around the people from other countries who had to seek refuge due to NATO and our own support to the Western capitalist countries when they invade and destroy other countries in the interest of power. That it's interesting that they were saying, look, as a hotelier, she was saying that it's very difficult for me to compete with an Airbnb down the road where my room is 80 euros a night. I have to employ night staff, kitchen staff, management, and then the Airbnb outbids me, and I can't compete. So this is one of the reasons why hotels they're saying.
Of course, and then you might have a restaurant who's next to that hotel who can't compete with the restaurant in the hotel. It's a competitive market. Dylan, you've made that point really clear. Dylan, a quick word from you. If you don't, actually, I beg your pardon, Dylan. I'll come to you in a second, but I want to free up Derek. Derek Nolan, do you want to ask?
Because I'm just heading to work. But
you come in, Dylan. Say what you have to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, just the point I'm going to make there is that I understand where Michael's coming from in regards to Airbnbs having in some ways some negative effects, but the reality is that without Airbnbs, rural tourism would be a non-issue because most of the rural hotels are taken up with refugees, and that's. I can understand that as well. I don't have any issue with refugees being taken in. But the other key issue here is that Michal is not addressing, is the fact that for the last 10 years, we've been fully aware of a major mica issue in Donegal. There's about 1,000 houses in the council's own stock which have mica. And the council has not built anywhere near the level of social housing that they should have built over the last 10 years. And on top of that, they won't correspond with tenants who are raising queries about what is going to be done or what are their plans to rehouse the tenants of the council houses while repairs are being done. What is their plans? So maybe Micheál wants to speak about that rather than going on about the average individual, renting out a room in their house.
Okay, I'll let you get on to work, Dylan. Sure, you can listen to the answer on the radio. Thanks for that. Quick 30 seconds on that, please, if you don't mind, Micheál Colm.
No, but and I have great empathy for anybody that is left in the situation that they are in terms of Mica, and I do believe that the government, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, have flip-flopped around this deliberately and not willing to actually address the real issue that the people who see themselves in their homes, and that's what they are, as their homes, and that's very unfortunate. But I'll be very blunt and very honest with it. And the community that I live in, we don't seem to have the same level, nowhere near it, as the rest of the county. So I'm slightly removed from it, and I'm not making it an excuse. I'm more than happy to meet any community group, individuals, or anybody at all in any part of the county whatsoever. But that's something that I don't work with on a daily basis, and I hear some of the other colleagues who do work with it on a daily basis, and I have to say, without sounding patronising, my heart and soul absolutely goes out to anybody that watches their homes being crumbling around them.
We need all of our councillors from wherever they are in this county, and all of our TDs from wherever they are in this county, to be all over the Mica issue, because you might not have it now, Micheál Colm, but it certainly could come knocking on the West's door in the next year or two.
Yes.
I don't think it's an issue we can be parochial on. But listen, thank you very much for your time, Micheál Colm. As always, interesting conversation. Fair play. And lastly to you, Derek, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there, some that's completely outside the remit of Airbnb, but I mean, obviously it's clear from your comments that you've an understanding of sort of social issues more generally. The last minute to you.
Well, thanks very much, Greg, for having me on, and it was very interesting to hear some of the comments and some of the on the ground information. I suppose what I would say, just in as the purpose of us giving this information was so that we could inform the debate and we could inform the discussion, and people could know what the impact was when they're discussing it. So I think we've helped to achieve that today. And just to recall some of the figures, 38 million euro in spending. There are 550 people working in Donegal today whose job depend on people spending on Airbnb. If there was a factory with 550 people in Donegal that was suddenly threatened with closure, or there would be a huge uproar. And I think we just have to, keep those figures in mind. And again, to agree again with some of the comments on Micheál Colm, it's about the balance, and how do we make sure that we look after the good and don't throw out the baby with the bathwater in any of our attempts to get things right for everybody.
All right, thank you for your time this morning. We'll be back with more after a break.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook, and at highlandradio.com. The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, with monster loans available up to €60,000 for all occasions. Visit letterkennycu.ie.
The Citroën EC4 and all new EC4X are fully electric, so that means zero exhaust emissions. Their progressive hydraulic cushion suspension means zero vibrations. Their renowned advanced comfort seating means zero discomfort. And now, their impressive finance offer means % interest rate. Book a test drive today at your local Citroën dealer, and zero for yourself.
Cervical Check provides free cervical screening for women aged 25 to 65. HPV cervical screening is one of the best ways to reduce your risk of developing cervical cancer in the future. If you're due your cervical screening, don't delay. Make an appointment today. For information and to check you're on the register, visit hsc.ie/cervical check. Or free phone 1-800 45 45 55. From the HSE.
Do you currently have vacancies that need urgently filled? Have you tried various ways to find new staff but didn't succeed? Let Highland Radio help you source and fill your current vacancies in the most cost-effective way. Simply sign up to our new job spot and we will tell our listeners about your vacancies both on air and online. Every Monday, Wednesday and Friday during our primetime shows, we will broadcast the latest job opportunities across the Northwest and into counties Derry and Tyrone. All job listings will be available online online at highlandradio.com. For more information, contact the advertising team on 07491 25322 or email advertising@highlandradio.com. Highland Radio, we're here for you.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Simplify your debts with a debt consolidation loan from Letterkenny Credit Union. Call us on 074 910 2126 or apply online via our app or in office today.
Encountering wildlife under South African skies. Setting sail on the Danube. Discover more with Travel Department and save up to €100 per person on guided group holidays, now and in 2024. Sunsets in Sorrento, exploring Egypt and the iconic Nile River. We'll take care of everything. Flights, accommodation, excursions and expert guides. All you have to do is book. Go to traveldepartment.com. Let's see more. T's and C's apply.
Beat your personal best with top brands and premium running footwear from Michael Murphy Sports in Letterkenny. There's new arrivals from Asics, New Balance, Brooks, Adidas and Under Armour in a range of structured and neutral styles. There's also free next day delivery on orders over €85 at michaelmurphysports.ie.
Congratulations to everyone who received a CAO offer to study in Atlantic Technological University. Your journey starts now. We've got all the information you'll need to get started at atu.ie/offers. If you didn't get an offer for ATU but are interested in studying a CAO course with us in September, don't worry. Some courses are still open for applications. Just go to atu.ie/available places to find out more. ATU, your future is here.
Where's the party? Bundoran presents Ireland's biggest indoor dancing festival, the World Matchmaking Festival, in 4 venues for 10 days, 10 nights, September 29th to October 8th, starring 35 bands including the Tumbling Paddies, Derek Ryan, David James, Declan Nerney, plus Blind Date and Speed Dating. Book now for accommodation and entertainment package deals. Log on to showtours.ie or call 0818 300 888. Meet your match in Bundoran. Very special guest from Lisdoonvarna, the world famous matchmaker Willie Daly.
Okay, we've received loads of comments on that last item. I simply don't know what people's views are, and that's what's great about this programme. Programmes like this is because we have a convo and then we get straight into what you actually think. I'm going to read a couple because we ran over a little bit, so I have to take another ad before the news at 10. Airbnb moved into the house in our estate recently, and I have to say, despite the uproar from neighbours that it would be nothing but party after party, you wouldn't know they were there. There have been no issues with them at all. They're filling a gap in the market, and right they are. No regulation should have to live beside them. 5 in the vicinity, all night parties. Where are Airbnb then? Don't start me on the lack of guards. Well, that's the flip side. Okay, that is something I didn't consider. Spent 5 nights in Cork. Airbnb for €580 for a family of 7 was going to cost €700 for 1 night in a hotel in Galway. A no-brainer for me. I am one for Airbnb. Another, hi Greg, hotels are just getting too expensive in Ireland to stay in. Taking your night stay, drink and a bite to eat, you're talking about €600 for 1 night. Phone one hotel for this Saturday night coming. €300 for myself and wife. Just too much, thanks, they say. Micheál Colum and Thomas Pringle are barking up the wrong tree, saying Airbnb houses should be given to our poor. Those houses represent some people's only income. Why aren't they talking about tourism hotels and lodges being given to Ukrainians instead of tourists? The whole system is geared against helping the local economy, and people are trying to make a living. And I'm going to come back after 10 with loads more of your comments. Stay right where you are. We've a very busy couple of hours on the way.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union. Digital loans now available. Apply online or via our app today and get your loan transferred directly to your current account.
The Tip O'Neill Irish Diaspora Awards are back for 2023, presented by Donegal County Council. The event will take place on Saturday, September 16th at the Inishowen Gateway Hotel in Buncrana. This year's awards will recognise the contribution of Professor William C. Campbell, Caroline McLaughlin and John T. Fries in their chosen fields. Secure your tickets now through Eventbrite and join us for a fantastic night of Track Agus Ceol.
Is your car in need of a service? At iMotors, with our state-of-the-art workshop facilities, we offer servicing, timing belts, tyres and wheel alignment. Split your service bill over 4 payments with our bumper payment facility. Visit imotors.ie to book in or call us today.
On this week's Business Matters, we'll be replaying an interview with the co-owner of Donegal Bees in Glencolmkill, Thomas Ellis, that was first aired back in January. So join me, Kieran O'Donnell, for Business Matters on Sunday evening after the 6 o'clock news. The Business Matters podcast is also available to download at highlandradio.com.
Business Matters in association with ATU Donegal Faculty of Business. Now is the time to realise your potential by enrolling on the part-time degree in business. Only 3 years with 1 evening per week on campus and another online. Open up your future by contacting the faculty office on 9186206 or visit lyit.ie today. We are now in our last week and your last few chances to win big with Highland Radio this summer.
€2,500 will be given away on the Naughty Alarm Clock this Friday, 1st of September.
But that's not all, because we've left the biggest prize until last. Can you imagine winning €10,000 in cash?
Greg Hughes will be calling one lucky person on Friday the 1st of September at 11:30. Have you bought your ticket yet?
Go to highlandradio.com, click on the link, answer a simple question and purchase your ticket. But hurry, lines close this Friday.
What would you do with €10,000 in cash?
Live, on air, online and on the Highland Radio app. This is Highland Radio News.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock. Donald Kavanagh at the news desk. The Donegal CAMHS teams had some of the lowest staffing levels in the country, with one team without a psychologist, social worker and occupational therapist. 3 teams in all were assessed by the Mental Health Commission. It's published its latest review into child and adolescent mental health services. It examined 9 community healthcare settings across the HSE and found 4,451 children and teens waiting to access services. In all, 49 recommendations have been made, but John Farrelly, CEO of the Mental Health Commission, believes CAMHS can be turned around.
Written to the Minister, to the Department and the HSE, there's 49 recommendations which, if put in place, can really ameliorate the issues that have been found. We're also asking that a strategy is put in place for CAMHS and for youth mental health services, and we're also asking that CAMHS is regulated. If these steps are put in place, we'd be confident that we can rebuild CAMHS and make sure that CAMHS is effective throughout Ireland.
In a statement this morning, the HSE locally says several service improvement initiatives have already commenced, including a targeted waiting list initiative programme. The current number of service users waiting for an initial assessment in the region, they say, is 320. That's compared to 447 in March. That's down 28%. The number of service users waiting more than 12 months for an initial assessment is currently 8. Compared to 34 in March. That's a reduction, they say, of 76%. Notwithstanding the progress made, the HSE locally acknowledges there continue to be gaps and weaknesses in the current service. They say work is ongoing to expedite the recruitment of key frontline staff. And you can read that full HSE statement on our website, highlandradio.com. Traffic delays are expected in Strabane on Saturday afternoon, with a parade set to take place at 3 o'clock. Those participating are scheduled to assemble from 2:30 on John Wesley Street. From there, the parade will move onto Railway Street, into Abercorn Square, Market Street, along Main Street, Townsend Street and into Strabane Cemetery. Road users are advised to seek an alternative route if possible. Police will be on hand to assist traffic. St Vincent de Paul says the number of people looking for help with back-to-school costs has fallen. It's down 20% on last year's figures. However, the charity says lots of families are still struggling with food and energy bills, with the overall number of calls up by 14%. Dr. Tricia Keelty from SVP says the new free school book scheme at primary level has been a major help, but she says more needs to be done.
This just shows when we invest in children and invest in our education system, we can make a difference. So we'd like to see progress made on education costs in the upcoming budget. So that will be expanding free school books to secondary school students, and we really want to see an end to voluntary contributions, and that can only be achieved by adequately funding schools.
The HSE has confirmed there'll be no nurse or GP available on Tory Island today as had been scheduled. It's due to the helicopter being grounded for essential maintenance work with no second helicopter available to make the journey instead. The HSE says it's putting interim measures in place and has apologised for any inconvenience caused. The helicopter is expected to be operational again by the next scheduled flight on September 14th. The Cathaoirleach of Glentee's Municipal District, Councillor Michael McClafferty, says better organisation is needed to prevent this from happening in the future.
Going to deter people down very certainly. I mean, like with the situation there the last day with the playground starting there the last day in Tory Island themselves, which obviously we all welcome very much, it sends out a very bad news story today and last night when the word broke there that no nurse or GP will get to the island. But it comes down to question, why is this maintenance just happening to be falling in days that are going to Tory? They need to sort out the maintenance schedule better. They need to, whoever is dealing with the service of the helicopter, needs to get the diary better in order, to be fair about it.
The Irish Tourism Confederation says it's been a difficult summer for businesses working in the industry. Overseas visitors to Ireland are down by 37%, with the number of British and German tourists noticeably down. However, the North American market has continued to perform strongly. Aisling Kenny runs the Sligo Oyster Experience. She says the lack of accommodation has had an impact.
It's mostly tourists that would do the tour, the oyster farm tours, so we rely heavily on tourism. We did miss out on groups, like bus loads of tourists due to they couldn't find accommodation either near or in Sligo. That was the reason they gave me why the tour couldn't go ahead.
Well, the forecast generally overcast and wet today with outbreaks of rain and drizzle spreading northeastwards. There may be some brief bright spells this afternoon with the heavy rain gradually clearing northeastwards, but showers will follow. Moderate southeast winds and top temperatures of 15 to 19 degrees Celsius. Very high tides expected also as a result of the supermoon. And that's Highland Radio News for now. Local breaking news, of course, can be found on our website, highlandradio.com. Your next on-air update is at 11. Until then, good morning.
The obituary notices this Thursday morning, August 31st. The death has taken place of Sean Diver Cosh Clady Bunbeg. His remains will repose at his home from 11 a.m. today and tomorrow until rosary time at 8 p.m. nightly. Funeral arrangements to be confirmed later. The death has occurred in Melbourne, Australia, of James McClenahan, formerly St Martin's Greencastle. Funeral arrangements to be confirmed later. The death has taken place of Annie Rattigan, Nee Keane, Corlacken, Craigs, County Galway, mother of retired Garda Tom Rattigan Buncrana, reposing at Smith's Funeral Home, Roscommon, this evening from 5 o'clock until 7 o'clock, followed by removal to St Michael's Church, Glinsk. Mass of the Resurrection tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. Burial afterwards in Bannakill Cemetery. Family flowers only, please. The death has occurred of John Mullen, Kirkstown, Letterkenny, reposing at his late residence. Family time, please, before the funeral this morning. Funeral from there this morning, going to St Eunan's Cathedral for 11 a.m. Requiem Mass, which can be viewed live on churchservices.tv, followed by burial in the family plot in Conwall Cemetery. Family flowers only, please. Donations, if wished, to the Donegal Hospice, care of Pascal Blake, funeral director. The death has taken place of Victor Gibson, 27, Knocknamona Park, Letterkenny. His remains will repose at his late residence from 11 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. today. Funeral leaving from there tomorrow afternoon at 1:30 p.m. for 2 p.m. funeral service in Conwall Parish Church, Letterkenny, followed by burial afterwards in Ballymore Graveyard, Dunfanaghy. House private, please. Close family, friends and neighbours welcome. Family flowers only. Donations in lieu if desired to the Irish Heart Foundation, care of Terence McClintock, funeral director. For more details, including any family health guidelines for wakes and funerals, please go to highlandradio.com.
Only Murphy Murders in the Building is back on Disney+.
You know what this means?
Murder?
Yeah, murder.
The stage is set for the wildest season yet.
We're onto something here.
Featuring Steve Martin, Martin Short, Selena Gomez.
Look at this cast. They're all killers.
As well as Paul Rudd and Meryl Streep.
This is so exciting.
I'm honored to work with you. Just don't upstage me.
Only Murders in the Building. New season now streaming exclusively on Disney+. 18+ subscription required. T's and C's apply.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio.
Okay, let's get through some of your comments here. Thanks so much for texting. A caller says, my health insurance for myself and my wife is €290 per month. I claim virtually nothing, but like car insurance, I may need it someday for things like hip or knee replacement or some other unforeseen medical issue. I've paid in far more than I'll ever claim back. Now, I do have an understanding, of course, but like, say, for instance, you're paying $290 a month. If, God forbid, you had an issue with your hip or knee or replacement, would you not sort of get that done on the cross-border purchase scheme? Would you get in quicker? Would you get it done? I don't know. €290 a month for two people. A lot of money. But, of course, it's if you can afford it, it is obviously good value. Not good value, worthwhile. Every greenfield, hedge, tree, forest, bush, shrub plant in Ireland is capturing carbon. We need to save our farmers and protect our farms. Don't be fooled, people, says a listener. A caller is a retained firefighter and wants to know, can it be confirmed that Karen O'Loughlin from SIPTU, who's been fighting their corner, will no longer be taking part in negotiations on behalf of the firefighters with her move to the Department of Education? Now, I wasn't familiar with that move. One, perhaps that wouldn't surprise me. Is it, when you say the Department of Education, is that within SIPTU or within government? We'll try and get some clarity for you, of course. When people paying mega money for their NCT to maintain their cars to make sure they're fit for the road, bloody hell, exercise in futility, if you ask me, when the government is not paying the money to maintain the infrastructure of roads, potholes, uneven roads, death traps, etc. And it is a factor. There's a couple of factors in the safety of our roads. There's the driver, there's a vehicle, and there is the roads. And I have said it many a time on this programme, I don't think there's enough emphasis on the latter in terms of the conversation. Yes, the car, yes, the driver, but the road is an important factor there. Greg, our roads need urgent attention. It's a disgrace. The roads are dangerous. More deaths on our roads now. Potholes galore. Waterlogged drains that cause flooding. Again, a danger zone. Are any of the politicians listening, or is it falling on deaf ears? They're all attentive when it comes to wanting votes. When they come to your door with their begging bowls out, promises, promises. Greg, we live in a family housing estate in Letterkenny. 2 houses have been let out as Airbnbs, but they are party houses that sleep 12 and have bunk beds. We're sick of the pollution and noise and feel as though we have no rights. Not fair at all. Again, this is why these conversations are so valuable. In all of the chat, there was no reference to that. It's come in now from a couple of listeners saying, look at, what about living beside them? Is that a particular problem? Let us know. 086 60 25,000 certainly is for a couple of listeners so far. If there is no services available, then funding should be made available for private services. I imagine that's to do with the CAMHS shortfalls. It's globalisation that's causing homelessness, and the Americans are saying so. First time ever in my life, I agree with Mihal. Dunfanaghy is a prime example. Here, locals priced out of it. If any area notices a build-up of tourists, then maybe locals should be encouraged to buy local buildings and renovate them to Airbnb. Keep businesses local. Areas all over Europe are complaining about over-tourism. We won't be beautiful, clean, rural green if we're packed with tourists, says a listener. Another, the only people to blame for the state of our country and the price of houses, rent, everything is our government, nobody else. We need to get our government out and get somebody new and who's actually going to put the people before money. And there was a big hoo-ha. You might remember, and loads of people shared it on social media about new regulations about home ownership and what you can do with your home. And it was attributed to the government, but it wasn't the government that was coming up with that idea at all. In fairness, I believe it was people before profit. I'll double check that to make sure I'm correct. But do you know where it was like they want to regulate what you can do with your homes and all this kind of stuff? It wasn't coming from Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, it was coming from opposition parties, some of the smaller ones, if my memory serves me correctly. Right, we got an email in, and this is an issue we're going to return to next week, but I wanted to read the email, give you an opportunity to sort of consume it and think about it, and maybe then if you want to get involved in the conversation a little later on, because we're going to speak to someone with direct knowledge of this case. And it is a listener that says they want to raise awareness of how the gastric sleeve impacted someone close to them. Would like to hear a balanced discussion on this. I'm of the opinion that unless you are clinically obese and it's a matter of life or death, then it is a very drastic option. It seems only the positives are shown in the media or social media, people half their weight. Not as much about the impact on health, dumping syndrome, psychological issues, blood sugar issues, malnutrition, etc. The people who have it for cosmetic reasons are perhaps ill-informed, and it is worth noting the side effects undoubtedly contribute to our already chock-a-block waiting lists for hospitals and GP visits. Regular blood tests are required monthly or even weekly to review patients and regular review appointments. Is this fair? I just wish our health service put more investment in prevention. Social media has so much to answer for in terms of body image. It's scary. As a parent, it's almost impossible to ensure a healthy diet for children. We can do our very best, but junk food is everywhere. Other people offer treats constantly, and it's very hard to say no as the children see everything else eating unhealthily. Yes, the schools try, but I mean situations like, say, Christmas, a selection box, no longer a treat, one at every corner you turn, kids coming out of shops with a €2 mix rather than a 10 pence mix like we had. I know eating unhealthily isn't the only reason for people requiring gastric sleeves. My heart goes out to those who absolutely need the surgery. But for those having cosmetic surgery, please think twice. It's a major surgery. There are side effects mentally and physically. You need to have medical and psychological support in your own country throughout your journey, as many call it. Just remember, whether successful or not, it comes with complications. The surgery is lifelong and irreversible. And that's someone with personal knowledge that didn't that had a devastating consequence for someone close to them. As I say, we'll chat about that a little later on next week. And as I said, and when we talked about this earlier, and I've interviewed people whose lives have just been completely and utterly reformed for the better as a result of this type of a surgery, this type of intervention. But that doesn't mean, of course, especially considering that people are going out for this surgery and not returning home or dying once they come home, that we have a full rounded conversation so everyone goes into it with their eyes wide open. Okay, if you've any comments on that, by the way, get them into us. You know the numbers. Our next guest coming up in just 2 minutes.
It's time for NCBI Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Thursday, the 31st of August, Jackpot Day. You're playing for the jackpot prize of €20,200 on the pink sheet. The reference number is S14. It's game number 35. The jackpot number is 49. This number can come out in any position from the next 10 numbers drawn. And now, here are your daily numbers. 11, 39, 88, 62, 45, 20, 27, 28, 49, and finally 54. Phone your claim to 9104833 before 8 tonight, leaving your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book, and we'll call you back the next working day. Get all your NCBI bingo information at highlandradio.com.
For all the biggest names in cosmetics and makeup, visit McGee's Chemist Letterkenny. Choose from Lancôme and Clarins, Blank Canvas, Inglot, Note and many more, with a great selection of gift sets also available in-store and online. For any cosmetics or makeup queries, just talk to our resident skincare consultants Mary or Gemma. McGee's Chemist, Main Street Letterkenny, and online at mcgees.ie, with the best costs less.
Looking for a good night's sleep? Restex Beds has you covered. Located at Mountaintop Letterkenny, they are the best in the Northwest to get a quality bed or mattress.
Come visit them today and wake up feeling rested and refreshed. Rest Hex Beds, Mountaintop, Letterkenny.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Now offering mortgages from 40,000 to 600,000 euro with no hidden fees or transaction charges. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127.
Now, Erin Gallagher is from Killybegs and joins us on the programme now. Hi, Erin, how are you keeping?
I'm good, Greg. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no, it's important that we do, and thanks for emailing us. Tell us your story, Erin, and we'll get to your dilemma then through the course of that, of course.
So basically, I'm going into final year of physiotherapy in UL. And just a wee background on the course, we are required to complete 1,000 hours of placement before we can register with the governing body, which is CARU in Ireland. And we're due to start our next placement on Monday. I'm actually driving down to Limerick today. But there is a strike action being put into place on September 11th. It's being carried out by Forsa. Which is basically just a trade union which represents like all the allied health professionals, so physio, OT, etc. And their main action is that they don't want to take on, or they're ceasing to take on student placements. And like while I support the action of my future colleagues, like it is affecting our upcoming placement, which is putting a lot of personal pressure on students.
Yeah, and it leaves you in a bit of a dilemma, isn't it? Because this is the future career that you want to go into, and you can understand perhaps the reasons behind it. But why should it affect, the future physiotherapists, etc.? It seems really unfair, but it leaves you in a kind of an very awkward situation.
Yeah, it does. And I'm lucky enough, my placement's in Limerick, so my accommodation will be in Limerick anyway, even if we have to return to college. But I know a lot of my friends, they're in Castlebar in Mayo, or they're in Galway, and they have rented out their rooms in Limerick for the time they're on placement. And if we end up having to come back to college because our placement isn't going ahead, they have nowhere to live, and then they're after paying rent for somewhere else in a different county. So it just is a lot of pressure at the minute with the accommodation crisis and everything.
Yeah,
and as well, it's delaying. It could potentially delay our graduation as well, which obviously nobody wants, because we all want to enter the workforce in 2024. But if this doesn't get sorted, that might potentially be disrupted.
Yeah, because 1,000 hours is a lot, and that all has to be done in the final year. So any delays in that obviously then could push back the whole process.
Yeah, well, we've completed 500 hours already, right. But we still have 500 hours left to go, which is roughly 15 weeks. So it's kind of, you don't need any delays to that.
Now, is this part of the action, part of the work to rule action, or is this the actual focus of it to not support your work experience?
To be honest, I'm not 100% sure. All I know is that how it's affecting us. And that's one of the actions anyway, that's being taken as part of the work to rule. It was kind of highlighted to us on the 17th of August that this might be a possibility, but just as we're creeping closer to placement, it doesn't seem to be getting resolved. I've emailed the Donegal TDs, but I don't know will I get any reply, just because I know they're still in their summer break at the minute. But our college course, we're all trying to take action ourselves in our own counties, but we just don't know what's going to happen. It's a lot of uncertainty. Yeah,
and as you say, an awful lot of stress in terms of just the progression of the education, but also the financial impact, the paying double rent, securing rent accommodation for specific periods of time, having to maintain that or not maintain that. It's really, really messy for a lot of students.
Yeah, and it's in a time where it's stressful enough already. You know, you're in your final year. This is the one that matters the most and is most heavily weighted, and we have a project to do, you know, as well, and it's just a lot of uncertainty and very frustrating. And you don't know what to do. I mean, do you try and adjust these leases? Because it's open-ended, you know, there's not really an awful lot one can do. If you had to secure accommodation for a placement, you don't know when you might actually be able to avail of it now. And as you say, there is and we all know, there is a huge accommodation shortage at the moment. Yeah. I know it's a big stress on a lot of people. The other thing that we were thinking might happen is if we had to make up hours during Christmas or like next summer or at the weekends. But the one thing I'll say about that is, like, obviously a lot of students are supporting themselves through college through part-time jobs, and our placement's currently unpaid. So, like, the impact for us, basically, the main one is our graduation, the loss of money due to rent and accommodation, and then plus potentially the loss of income if we have to make it up during a time we'd normally be working to help us get through college.
So what is the situation now for you, Erin? Like, when, I know you've sort of mentioned it, but I want to recap. When was your placement due to begin, and what is the status of that as we speak right now?
So right now we are starting placement on the 4th of September.
Right.
And my current understanding of the situation is we are on placement from the 4th to the 9th, and then our last day, or the 8th, I think maybe, and then our last day will be the 8th if this continues to go ahead, and then they're striking from the 11th of September. So then after that, it's uncertainty. Nobody really knows.
And of course, then in terms of even being able to register as their physiotherapist, this all obviously complicates that process.
Yeah, because CARU is our governing body, and you have to have 1,000 hours, and if you don't have the 1,000 hours, you can't register. So it just does mean that, like, we would be delayed in graduating, and we'd be delayed in entering the workforce, and, you know, just nobody wants that. Everybody wants to get out and get working, you know.
Now, obviously, as you said, and you understand, this is part of a wider action. Allied health professionals working with the HSE, the likes of dietitians, occupational therapy, social work, speech and language therapy. This is all going to have a potential impact on lots of people out there, not least you, the students as well. Hopefully it is obviously the first thing you'd want is presumably for the unions calls to be heard, but would you see as a compromise maybe to understand that you guys are the future of these of these disciplines, and that maybe your work placements could continue even while this industrial action continues? Sorry about the convoluted question, Erin, but is that an option?
No. Yeah, well, that would kind of be the hope. You know, I obviously hope for the sake of, like, my future colleagues and even my own future that this could be sorted. But at the same time, in my present moment, this is greatly affecting me and, like, my graduating class. Like, we want to go on placement. We have been preparing the summer for it, you know, and like, the best way to kind of learn all this stuff is to get out there and do it. So that would kind of be the hope, that it comes to some sort of conclusion, that they can come to an agreement that we can still carry out our placements.
Okay, fingers crossed, because we need people, lots of people in these disciplines. Erin, thank you. I hope you get a response from the TDs and they hear you as well. Thanks very much indeed. Erin Gallagher, who's from Killybegs and a student in her final year undergraduate physiotherapy in the University of Limerick. And as you heard from her really quite clearly, in quite a pickle, quite a dilemma there. More of your comments here regarding the waiting time for the RSA driving test. A family member applied in May for their test. Checked on the website last night. Estimated test date week beginning the 25th of December. This is Buncrana Test Centre. That's May to December. I don't need to go. We know all the reasons why it's so important that people can get on the roads, don't we? But that's an awful wait. And the problem with it is that firstly, that's Christmas week, so obviously it's a computer, and it's probably going to be January, but it could be February, it could be March, who's to say? That's an awful wait. Applied in May for their test. On the website last night, 25th of December is when they could expect to be called for their test. In fact, it's actually not called for the test. That's when you're invited to book your test. So it could be another 2 or 3 weeks thereafter, if they even stick to that date. So booked a driving test in May 2022. Unless something drastically changes, they're not going to be able to sit it till January 2024. How frustrating is that? Greg, 2 adults and 4 children. Basic health with VHI at the minute is, at minimum cover, is €150 a month. So that sounds like it must be the minimum then, which is €1,300 a year. Good morning. If a person registers with an agency as a healthcare assistant or nurse, if you're offered a job, for example, by the HSE at a latter stage, would you be able to leave the agency? As I've heard from other people say that if you sign a contract with an agency, you have to keep the agreement and cannot leave. Anyone with an insight in that? I'm sure there are people out there who know exactly what that's about. 086 60 25,000. Please get in touch and help that listener if you can. Yes, Greg, most of us are rebelling against corruption, not just in RTE, but in the administration as a whole, says a listener. Health insurance for our family, €3,600 a year. Note, no family policies, only individual members on the policy. Anti-family, like many policies, more money in individualisation. €3,600 is some bills. Now, I presume there are various packages that you can go for. CAMHS, Tusla, Court Service, HSE Housing, etc. Unfit for purpose. Do we see a long-running theme here? Poor management planning caused by yes men and women recruited or promoted into areas of responsibility by the Tweedledee, Tweedledum controlled establishment. Back to Airbnbs. We need Airbnbs because most of our hotels are full with Ukrainians. Donegal needs tourism and Airbnb is the only answer to that. Another, vacant houses in Donegal must be empty for 2 years before you can apply for help to renovate them. That is why there is an issue with homelessness in Donegal. Another, we need tourism in our county. It's our biggest contributor to the local economy. I would like to rent via Airbnb next summer, but I would never rent full time as I wouldn't be able to take back the house when I wanted. The state needs to build social housing. Mihal, you're so right. Homes should be for families. I feel the council have a lot to answer for. They're refusing planning to locals on their own land and yet allowing all kinds of developments happen around us. My son was refused planning, and despite changing the plans to suit all requests, it was still refused. Yet a family from Northern Ireland next door got planning with no issues. And you can imagine the frustration that causes there. And look at the county, look at the National Development Plan. It's all about moving us into cities and towns, and the country is no place, you're not encouraged in the country or in rural Ireland, should I say, seemingly anymore. All right, okay. We are going to be back talking about chronic pain in a moment.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com. The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low-rate holiday loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
Enter the Virgin Media Playhouse and unleash our best offers. It's time to play with our €100 gift voucher to spend your way when you choose full fibre 500 meg broadband for just €39 a month for 12 months and no activation fee. So switch today at virginmedia.ie. Virgin Media. It's playtime.
T's and C's apply. See virginmedia.ie. Subject to location and availability. New customers only. 12-month contract. 500 meg broadband. €70 thereafter. Ends October 11th, 2023.
Michael Murphy here, wishing Pádraig Kelly all the best in his retirement from iMotors. From all the team at iMotors.
The sounds of laughter, the words of a friend, your favourite song. Sounds mean so much to us, and our world grows smaller if we experience hearing loss. At Hidden Hearing, you can trust our expert audiologists to help, with a no-quibble 90-day money-back guarantee to ensure peace of mind. Visit www.hiddenhearing.ie or call 1850 21 44 88. Hidden Hearing. Life is worth hearing.
Where's the party? Bundoran presents Ireland's biggest indoor dancing festival, the World Matchmaking Festival, in 4 venues for 10 days, 10 nights, September 29th to October 8th. Starring 35 bands, including the Tumbling Paddies, Derek Ryan, David James, Declan Nerney, plus blind date and speed dating. Book now for accommodation and entertainment package deals. Log on to showtours.ie or call 0818 300 888. Meet your match in Bundoran. Very special guest from Lisdoonvarna, the world-famous matchmaker, Willie Daly.
Now, up to 1 in 3 adults wake up with chronic pain most days, but many still battle to have the debilitating condition, taken seriously by doctors. They can also face disbelief from family, friends and employers. It emerged in a recent study. Martina Phelan is chair of Chronic Pain Ireland and joins us on the programme. Thanks for your time today, Martina. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Greg. Delighted to be here.
Is the difficulty that it's not visible? Is that why it's difficult for people to understand or to relate?
Absolutely. I mean, you look at somebody with chronic pain, you can't see anything. Whereas you look at somebody with a broken leg and you can immediately see, oh, their leg is broken, give them a bit of sympathy, etc. Chronic pain, being an invisible illness, causes a huge amount of difficulty for people, not just in walking down the street or living their lives, but even with medical personnel. You can get all sorts of disbelief from around.
And what is your situation? You've lived with chronic pain from birth, as much as you're comfortable in saying, Martina, obviously. What is your life with chronic pain like?
It's been difficult. I suppose my actual pain would have started in my teenage years. And like that, I wasn't believed for years. I was put off with, the school bag is too heavy, etc. You're overweight, period pain. And that would be quite common. It wasn't until I was nearly 30 that I was diagnosed with chronic pain. And then I got to see a pain specialist. And up to that, I'd been struggling. I'd been going to different doctors. I'd been going to physiotherapists, all out of my own pocket now. And still working and studying as well. And sorry.
No problem.
The first thing the pain specialist said to me when I went in, and I'll never forget it, and it made the biggest impact on my life, was, "Your pain is real."
Wow.
That was the very first thing he said to me. And then he got me on a medication regimen and a treatment regimen. And that changed my life. The pain isn't gone. It's still there. It affects my mobility as well. I walk with a stick now. But for a lot of people, they don't need the extra aid, so it still can't be seen. How it affects my life is I haven't been able to work for 8 years. Simply because I can't sit for that long. I don't sleep very well, so I could be awake all night. That affects, and even pain affects your cognitive processes. So you literally can't think. You forget your words.
Yeah, I can imagine now. This, what happens now, I'm sure maybe it always happened. A doctor will say, or now doc will say, what is your pain 0 to 10? Do you know what I mean? And they must have a scale within that where they go, right, if it's above such and such, it's not. And 10 is pretty much unbearable, but you have to bear it. So from a scale of 0 to 10, where do you sit at averagely with chronic pain? Or maybe even before you were diagnosed might be better, Martina, because hopefully you're getting some better relief now.
Before I was diagnosed, it would have been at the 9 or 10.
Wow.
During the summer, it's raining now, so the summer is over. It's September, I think. It was up at the 9 or 10. I started a new treatment regimen, so it's gone down now to about a 6 on a daily basis. So the biggest thing you have to do is pacing. And I've often said to people, this is the new 4-letter word for us now. You have to get used to it. And it's planning out your day. It's doing a small bit. For example, you have to clean your house. So instead of cleaning the whole house in one burst, whether you're feeling good or not, you might sweep the floor. And then you take a break. You let your energy build back up. Then you might do the wash up. And that might be it for the day. And you have to wait then for the following day to do the next bit.
Mm-hmm. And, it makes an awful lot of sense for us, though, to approach this differently, because I'm not sure what the situation with you, Martina, was, but with other people with sort of like invisible issues or issues that maybe aren't mainstream or as common as others, they tie up so many different consultancies. They get so many different diagnoses. So you get one diagnosis, you treat that for 6 months, it doesn't work, you're back to the drawing board. And then, of course, then that obviously is going to generate mental health issues for some. So that could be another pathway to treatment. if we reset and say, right, let's change our approach, we actually use less resources, less money, and we give, as best as possible, a lot of people a better quality of life. And rather these eureka moments that someone has, be it Lyme disease or endometriosis or whatever it might be, where there comes this point, it seems to be generally late in life, in the 20s or something, where finally they get believed and they get treatment. And it's so familiar, the story, but still so shocking every time you hear it from a unique perspective.
Absolutely. We would call for, the multidisciplinary approach, what's called the biopsychosocial approach, which is the holistic approach. Treat the whole body, so that in one place you have the physiotherapist, you have the occupational therapist, you have the mental health therapist, which in whichever guise they are, and you have your pain specialist or whichever other discipline that you have to see. And then they're all talking to each other. They're all in one place. All your records are in one place. In Ireland, we don't currently have centralised records. So if you're going to one hospital or one centre for treatment, those records aren't in another one. So they don't know what's happening unless the patient tells them. And that would be part of it as well, to have those centralised records.
Obviously, our first protocol is general practitioners, GPs, and they are general practitioners.
Absolutely.
So we can't expect them to be across absolutely everything all of the time. But I wonder sometimes maybe if they could be a little bit quicker in referring someone to say that, even if there were a few red flags that say, right, okay, I'm not going to run this down for 6 months or a year. I want you referred to such and such a place. And as I say, they have an awful lot to do, but I wonder, do we do that enough?
I think they do. I don't think we give our GPs enough credit at times. I think part of the problem is the huge waiting lists. So even if you get the referral, you're waiting on average 12 to 18 months before you see the doctor. And then you have to wait again then for the treatment. So in the meantime, it's your GP that's still trying to look after you. So they have an immense amount of work. And there is a shortage of GPs in the country. We have to remember that too.
So, you talked of that moment, and a very important part of your life, I think, evidently, when finally you were diagnosed or recognized as being a chronic pain sufferer. But that's not like, yay, everything's grand now, because obviously then it's about treatment and making sure everything is tailored for you as best as is possible. How are we resourced in terms of, pain consultants or people that can deal with people like you with chronic pain across the country?
There is a lower number of chronic pain consultants than we would like. In the public health system, there is only the equivalent of 27 pain consultants. So that would be a whole-time number. So they're doing part-time in the different hospitals. And we would definitely call for an increase in that number to help people, to lower the waiting lists, and get more people treated quicker, get the treatment plans up and running quicker.
And in your case, or most people's case, or can you generalise, it is chronic pain. It's about managing chronic pain for the rest of the person's lives. At what point is a decision made that there can be no intervention to ease what's causing the pain?
I couldn't say.
Yeah.
There's
depends.
So many treatment plans, and it's so individual to everybody. But in terms of the self-management then at home, that's where Chronic Pain Ireland comes in. And I found Chronic Pain Ireland through my pain consultant. He had a sticker or a poster in the window. And we run workshops to help people with the self-management side of things. So that's the pacing, the sleep, the mental health,
All right, okay. And I just think, and it's not just in this area, but there's so many. You can't, not you, we'll talk more generally, you can't go around telling everyone all of the time what you're going through. But at the same time, then you also have to tolerate people maybe not recognizing what you're going through or understand it. And it must be incredibly frustrating.
It is. It's beyond frustrating. You know, in any situation, whether it's a work situation or even a home situation, you know, or a social, you know, you'll hear from a lot of people, oh, my social circle has decreased because they don't have the energy to go out and socialise, especially in the evenings. They might have had a full day of work or they've a full day at home with their children. They're trying to look after their children. And small children don't understand that mommy or daddy or their caregiver can't run around all the time. You know, I have several nieces and nephews and they've all grown up with me having chronic pain, but they still don't understand why Martina just can't walk out to the park with them or can't chase them around the garden.
Yeah.
You know, sit down on the floor, sit down on the couch might be the best thing you can do with them.
I get you. Martina, thanks for helping us to understand. We really appreciate your time. I hope you're feeling as good as you can do at this time. And is winter worse or summer, or does it matter? Or
winter can be worse. Cold weather for me in particular. Other people would find the heat worse. Can I give a shout out to our website?
Of course you can. Do whatever you want, yeah.
Yeah. So Chronic Pain Ireland, we have our own website. It's chronicpain.ie. We also have a Facebook page and a Twitter page, and all our events for Pain Awareness Month this September even, will be up on the website.
All right, okay. Thank you very much indeed for your time this morning, Martina. Take care of yourself. Thank you so much. That's Martina Phelan, Chair of Chronic Pain Ireland.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low-rate car loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
Alzheimer's Memory Walk takes place on Sunday, September 24th nationwide. Will you join us and walk for the 64,000 people living with dementia in Ireland? Register now for your pack and find a walk near you at memorywalk.ie or call 01207 3800. Let's walk together. Alzheimer's Memory Walk, supported by Payzone.
At ESB Networks, we're connecting Ireland to a clean electric future. And as part of the National Smart Metering Programme, we're now installing smart electricity meters in your area. Your new smart meter will reduce the need for estimated bills, help you to manage your electricity usage more efficiently, and enable you to access smart electricity products and services. We'll contact you before your meter is installed. Find out more at esbnetworks.ie/smartmeter.
Get outdoor toys at great prices in the massive end of summer sale now on at Tinney's Toys. Make big savings on trampolines, slides, swings and so much more. Visit the website tinneys.toys.com or call into the store at Leck Road, Letterkenny.
Your career starts with Northwest Regional College. Come along to your local Derry, Londonderry, Strabane or Limavady campus to apply for a course or confirm your place. Choose from our wide range of apprenticeships, level 3 diplomas, foundation degrees and so much more. Visit nwrc.ac.uk/results. Northwest Regional College.
OK, now, today the Mental Health Commission published its reports into the provision of child and adolescent mental health services, commonly known as CAMHS, in Community Healthcare Organisation 1. This covers Sligo, Leitrim, Donegal, Cavan and Monaghan. The Commission's report is a damning indictment of the deepening crisis in our mental health service, and the report shows that there are long waiting lists and serious staff shortages in the CAMHS region that we are in. The 3 Donegal CAMHS team had the lowest staffing in the region, and one team had no psychologist, no social worker, no occupational therapist. This severely restricted the therapeutic interventions available to young people. And overall, the Mental Health Commission's Dr. Susan Finnerty, having published an overall report, found children are subject to a postcode lottery in getting essential mental health services. And she said that following her inspection, she could not provide an assurance to parents that their children have access to a safe, effective and evidence-based mental health service. Fiona Coyle is CEO of Mental Health Reform. Thank you for joining us, Fiona. And this paints... well, it's a national scandal, I think I would describe it as, and a very, very dark picture.
Yeah, it's a stark reflection, I think, Greg, of the state of our mental health services, in particular for children and young people. There's a real lack of standardized care and access, which is really concerning. Every child, every young person should have access to high quality, appropriate mental health service, regardless of where they live. And, we really need strong leadership, accountability, and really immediate actions to this. Like, I think, as you said, it's a national scandal and it should be treated as such. Like, the first report has been out. It's almost a month and a half now, and we've not heard a commitment from the Taoiseach or any of the coalition partners that this is a priority issue for them. So we really need it to be recognised by the highest higher levels of government if we're going to have any effect or any change from these really damning reports.
Because if it's something like, and I'm not in any way comparing issues, if it's something like water issues, lots of people are affected and they can get together and organise and what have you. Unfortunately, these are individual battles families are fighting. They're not coordinated in any way, shape or form. And unfortunately, when issues are like that, even though it affects so many people, but because they don't have a united voice, and I know mental health reform is offering that, but if you understand where I'm coming from, it doesn't seem to get as much interest from political parties as perhaps it should.
Yeah, no, you make a very good point. And a lot of the families and indeed the young people that I speak to, they feel alone and they feel like they don't want to, especially the families, they don't want to speak out on behalf of their child because there's still so much stigma surrounding accessing mental health services and supports. And people feel, that their child will be stigmatized by merely them saying that they need to seek CAMHS support. So I think as an issue, we need to collectively make our voice a lot louder on it. Mental health reform, like we're an umbrella organisation, so we represent over 81 community and voluntary sector organisations, many of them household names like Pieta, Jigsaw, ISPCC, who all work in delivering key services to young people. And next week we'll be launching our pre-budget campaign, and as part of that, we're asking people to contact their TDs, and we're going to make it very easy for people. It's simply one click of a button from our website to get your concerns into your local TDs, because unfortunately, if we're not making the voices heard, there's no family in Ireland, and certainly there's no family across Donegal that hasn't been in some way impacted by mental health difficulties. And we really need to make sure that those who are in the position of power are aware that this is a concern, and this does need to be addressed. So I think, if people are listening, I'd urge them to kind of have a look at our social media and become part of that kind of collective voice, because only by raising it collectively are we really going to have an impact.
Yeah, and please contradict me if this isn't a fair assessment, Fiona, but what we do see in crisis situations, we've had it here in Donegal, and unfortunately we're witnessing it in Tipperary, whereby there is seen as an acute need for supports for young people, and they're much lauded and advertised and presumably well resourced, and exactly how it should be. But if you took a step back and stood in the middle of Europe, that's a nationwide issue here at the moment, and we should be throwing all our resources and all our money and whatever supports it takes to help the many young people suffering with their mental health and other issues, because it is, as I say, a real national problem. We're seeing figures going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, no, you're completely correct. Like, this is a national problem, especially coming out of COVID. A lot of our members have seen spikes in the number of children and young people accessing their services. And the CAMHS report, like the CAMHS supports, it's very specialised, and it is for people who are in kind of a mental health crisis. And what we're really asking for is, to take a step back, as you said. How do we get support to that young person when they need it at the right time, so they don't need to escalate to a place where they need specialized supports? Because we need those specialised supports to be fit for purpose. We need parents in Donegal, to be accessing the same quality of supports that, someone in Dublin or, other areas may be. But we also need to support, it's not fair on what was recognised in the reports, and something I really want to emphasise is the vital work that's being carried out by those who are in those services. Like, they are trying their best in what are very strained circumstances, and it's really, there's acute staff shortages and recruitment issues, but there's a lot of burnout and overburdenment, but the staff at the front lines are doing their very best. What we need now is those who are, in charge of our health services to step in and to support them as well.
Yeah. And listen, just as you're talking, a person texting in, working in this area, they're burnt out, they're understaffed, they're working long hours, and they don't feel like they're making any inroads because the problems are worsening, the workload is worsening, and it's an awful situation for anyone to be working in. But Fiona, like, some people listening will hear words CAMHS, mental health, children, resources, recruitment and that kind of stuff. But what is the consequences of this? So what damage is being done by young adults and children who need the services of CAMHS not getting it? So, what are the consequences of the situation we find ourselves in? Some general examples as to what it actually might mean for these young people and their families.
Yeah, like I think in the report, it really, what came to the fore is the frustration that parents feel and that young people feel. So if you're not accessing support and you're witnessing, your family member or someone in your care, or you yourself, you're not getting support, your crisis may be escalating. It may be escalating to a point where you need to go to A&E for support, or may need to go into an inpatient care or treatment facility. So I think not getting that right support, it's really frustrating, not only for the young person, but for the family around them, perhaps for the broader community, for the school. So it has a huge knock-on impact, because you're witnessing someone who may be kind of in a place where they need support. So again, it's looking at those earlier interventions as well, and a lot of those are being delivered by community and voluntary groups. And there's a lack of funding being provided. They haven't had an increase in the funding, although they can show that the number of people that they're supporting is increasing. They're working with the same resources that they were, but the numbers are going up. So we need a strategic response.
Or do we need to change it altogether? Because I've seen letters recently whereby positions are available and they're funded, but they can't be filled. Right, so the HSE might argue, or whomever's overall responsible might say, look, what can we do? We can't force people to move to Donegal and work in this area, or we can't force people to take up these options. And that just leaves us going in a circle. Is there a solution to that issue? Because the jobs are there, the funding seemingly is there, and this is not, this is actual CAMHS funding, but they can't fill the roles. So what can or needs to be done?
Yeah, and the recruitment issue is one across the country as well, and in particular for more rural areas. And I think what we need to invest in, which is a timely investment, it takes time, is more courses. So, going back to the beginning, so that more people perhaps from Donegal go through the education and come out as these clinicians, and, they're able then to live and work in their communities, which we hear a lot of. That's what people want ultimately as well. But also it's taking a step back and saying, okay, it's difficult for us to fill these positions, but can we invest more in other services, such as those are being provided by community and voluntary organisations, to stop, the huge numbers that need to access CAMHS. There'll always be individuals who'll need CAMHS supports, but, we can support people in different ways. So we need to kind of take a step back and look at, what are the resources we have in Donegal, what are the organisations who are there supporting individuals, and how can we all work collectively to ensure that we're providing real support, timely support to that young person when they need it in their own community as well. Donegal's a large place. We need to ensure that there is those community-based services.
Finally, Fiona, I beg your pardon, I don't want to do anything that actually adds to a problem, because, you know, we spend a lot of time talking about mental health in this programme and encouraging people to get assistance when they need it, okay? So I'll just leave it to you, the final words. We have to talk about these things to improve things, but what if it discourages someone from seeking the help that they need, or giving up, or their situation being compounded? What's your message to them people, if that's okay?
No, that's a really good point. I think, you know, while these reports do show that there is huge gaps in our system, there's still lots of amazing supports out there for individuals, and you know, it should never discourage you from coming forward, because the support is there. A lot of what this is highlighting is more kind of governance, systemic issues that, you know, that need to be resolved. But I think, you know, if people want to log on to our website, mentalhealthreform.ie, you'll see so many organisations, no matter what your concern is, or the concern of your young person. If it's ADHD, we've ADHD Ireland. Body-wise, or the National Eating Disorder Organisation, Pieta and Samaritans are always there. And there's also the text 50808 support number, that if you don't want to talk to anyone, you just want to text and get a bit of support, that number is there and available as well. So there's so many supports out there, and recovery is possible as well. I think that's the main message we need to get across, that, you know, having a mental health difficulty, we need to normalize it, and we need to ensure that people are speaking out, and when they are, that they get the support that they need. So yeah, I think we need to ensure that these reports and, you know, the coverage of it, that we aren't discouraging people from
really important, because we're
out.
very careful with language that we use when we're discussing issues like suicide and other things. And I really think there's a responsibility on the media to make sure that we don't take hope away, because there's lots of supports there. But we also need to talk about things to make sure they're better for more people. Fiona, thanks for helping with that. Take care of yourself. Fiona Coyle, CEO of Mental Health Reform.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, with monster loans available up to €60,000 for all occasions. Visit letterkennycu.ie.
On this week's Business Matters, we'll be replaying an interview with the co-owner of Donegal Bees and Glencolmkill, Thomas Ellis, that was first aired back in January. So join me, Kieran O'Donnell, for Business Matters on Sunday evening after the 6 o'clock news. The Business Matters podcast is also available to download at highlandradio.com.
Business Matters, in association with ATU Donegal Faculty of Business. Now is the time to realise your potential by enrolling on the part-time degree in business. Only 3 years with 1 evening per week on campus and another online. Open up your future by contacting the faculty office on 9186206 or visit lyit.ie today.
With the largest selection of pre-owned vehicles in the Northwest, check out imotors.ie. We have it all. Starter cars, family cars, and even a bit of luxury, all available to drive away. All cars come serviced and with warranty. Check out imotors.ie.
It's the great autumn of savings at SuperValue, with over 1,000 price cuts on all the big brands you love, like Goodfellas Stone Baked Tin Pepperoni Pizza was $4.99, now $3.65. Fairy Non-Biopods 33 wash was $17.90, now €9. And money off vouchers every week on the app too. So pop in for great savings in store, online this autumn at SuperValue.
With all the stories that matter across the Northwest, it's Greg Hughes on the 9 to noon show on Highland Radio.
All right, it is 11 o'clock. Let's get a news update. It's over to Donna Marie Doherty.
Thanks, Greg. Good morning. A Donegal deputy has said that hundreds of children with disabilities and their families are being badly failed in Donegal. Deputy Padraig McLaughlin said that while local TDs and HSE forum members, councillors will meet with senior HSE management, he is appealing for the Health Minister to work to fulfil vacancies for key positions in the Children's Disabilities Network teams, which he believes is now in crisis. 3 Donegal CAMHS teams had the lowest staffing levels, with one team without a psychologist, social worker and occupational therapist. The Mental Health Commission has published its latest review into child and adolescent mental health services. It found that some of the most depraved areas of Donegal were in the North Donegal, Gaeltacht, Ecuador, the islands, southwest Donegal and around Carndonagh. In a statement this morning, the HSE locally says several service improvement initiatives have commenced, including a targeted wait list initiative programme. Sligo and Letterkenny University Hospital were the 4th and 5th most overcrowded in the country during the month of August, according to figures which have just been published by the IMNO. In total, over 9,720 admitted patients found themselves without beds across the county's hospitals in August. The highest figure of 1,885 was recorded in Limerick, followed by Cork and Galway. Sligo had 737, while Letterkenny had 539. 2 drivers were clocked speeding yesterday by the Letterkenny Roads Policing Unit. One was detected travelling at 138 km per hour in a 100 speed zone and was issued a fixed charge penalty notice. Meanwhile, another driver was arrested and charged to appear in court after they were detected travelling 160 km in a 100 speed zone. And finally, a West Donegal councillor says there needs to be a discussion about the impact of tourism on Gaeltacht communities, and in particular that high costs have to be absorbed by local community where their area becomes popular with visitors. Councillor Micheál Collin McGilla Asbog was speaking following the publication of figures by Airbnb this week, which found their operations had boosted Donegal's economy by €29 million last year. That's all for now. Don't forget you can find the latest local breaking news on our website highlandradio.com. Your next on-air updates at 12 o'clock. Until then, good morning.
Thank you, Donna Marie. We'll be back with more after this short break.
Centra's Spanish wine sale runs until September 20th with a tempting selection of very good vinos straight from the vineyards of España. Elevate your evenings with rich Riocas, crisp Albarinos and luscious Tempranillos. This fiesta won't last forever. Find the perfect bottle, quality and value in Centra. Shop smart, live every day. Enjoy alcohol sensibly.
Thank you, Caroline. Okay, you're very welcome back to the 9 till noon show. Paul McLaughlin, gardener at Ballochder Garden Centre, is going to be taking up his seat very shortly. So we'll be answering your gardening questions. Busy on the phones. Thank you so much to all of you for taking part. I work in this area and the lack of staff is simply down to burnout. Too much workload and no staff. These crews work long and hard hours, but it's a needle in a haystack because the numbers are just increasing. Now, I know it's difficult when you work within an industry to speak out beyond what you already have, and I do appreciate it. But also, I would love for us all, the general population, to know what it's like for you and how you within the industry believe it can be fixed. If that is not too difficult, I would love to speak to someone working in that area because you're doing amazing work under incredibly difficult circumstances. No psychiatrist in CAMHS, Donegal, no support anymore. Let me see. In relation to the proposed strike by health workers, I think their action in relation to not training students is going to affect themselves. Firstly, as newly qualified people for 2024 means they will continue to be stretched and understaffed. Indeed, it doesn't make a great deal of sense, does it? Greg, my son has a family with autism and other special needs. I think Airbnbs have many benefits and it's a shame that it's being discussed so negatively. For my son, a hotel would not be great for the kids as they would get bored easily and also they need to save money. The prices of hotels are ridiculous, so I'm extremely grateful for the likes of Airbnb. Again, more conversation, striking a balance then, is it? Wealthy frighteners, including Dubliners and NI, should not be allowed to buy up and inflate prices for houses and land. It's not frighteners. I don't know what that word's corrected for, but I appreciate it. Right. We've lovely Ukrainian families in our community. There are about 25 adults and children living in a large house near Glen in Carragart. Yesterday, they were given notice that they were to be moved to Dunfanaghy. They weren't given a choice, and when they asked to view where they would be going, no answer was forthcoming. The families have been here about a year and are integrated nicely into our community. They've been told to pack everything up and be ready to get on the bus tomorrow, which is actually today at 1 p.m. The owner of the house wants them to remain, and he will be at the property to see if anything can be done. I feel there is a serious human interest story here. Apart from being a concerned citizen, I've no other reason to bring this to your attention. Now, Dunfanaghy, of course, is not a million miles away from Glen, but it is. Does that mean they're going to have to go to different schools, be uprooted from that? Maybe they've found employment in the local area. If anyone else has any more insight into this, it's about 25 adults and children. They're being moved from a house in Glen at a day's notice to a property or properties in Dunfanaghy. Locals aren't happy as well because they've come to know them and to accept them as part of the community. And now I want to make sure that there isn't an issue going on here that needs more publicity from the likes of us. So if anyone has an insight into that, maybe someone is at the property that would be prepared to speak to us, and maybe we could speak to some of those affected and get an insight into this. It's really important that if it is a problem, that people speak out and get it out there. Maybe it's too late to change now, but it's just something we can't or shouldn't ignore. That could be one person's interpretation, but if it's a wider issue, we're here for all members of the community, be they Ukrainian or otherwise. So the text line is 086 60 25,000, or give us a call on 074 91 25,000, 074 91 25,000 if you've anything to add to that story. Okay, I'm going to clear the path for Paul McLaughlin to talk gardening. So I'll take our quarter past ad a little early, and that'll free us up then for the next 20 minutes or so. Any questions? 086 60 25,000.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio.
The 9 till Noon Show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Simplify your debts with a debt consolidation loan from Letterkenny Credit Union. Call us on 074 910 2126 or apply online via our app or in office today. Join the team at Homeland Agri Creasla for their open day this Friday, 1st of September from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. Enjoy great offers, refreshments, advice from their experienced team, spot prizes and much more. Highland Radio's Around the Northwest with John Breslin will also be broadcasting live from the store from 12 till 2:30 p.m. on the day. We look forward to seeing you there.
Get down to O'Flaherty's Bar Buncrana on Friday the 1st of September with live music from Derek Ryan and special guest David James. Every Wednesday at O'Flaherty's there's live traditional Irish music and Irish dancing, and for all the quiz fans, every Thursday night featuring the Smart Quiz, plus lots more every weekend. O'Flaherty's Bar Buncrana, where a good pint always goes over the bar.
Have you heard about the McElhinney's M card? Now available exclusively in store. Sign up today to start earning and redeem once you hit £500. Register in store at our M card station on the first floor or at any till point. The M card, the new way to save at McElhinney's.
Fancy a game of bingo? Play at Strand Bingo, Strand Road, open 7 days a week. Free bus every Tuesday and Thursday from Clonmany, stopping at Carndunna, Buncrana and Fawn. Call Neil on 086 7307 017 to book your place. Play Tuesdays from just £5 for 6 chances to win £300. Or Thursday Stairway to 7, 6 chances to win £700. Check out boyledbingoclubs.com or download our app for more info.
Highland Radio time checks with Expressway. Travel Route 32 from Letterkenny to Dublin when you book online and travel for less. Expressway, bringing you the time at...
The time is 9 minutes past 11 on this Thursday, the 31st of August 2023, on what is the meteorological last day of summer. Paul McLaughlin, gardener at Ballochder Garden Centre. What summer?
Yes,
summer.
exactly. I think summer ended a few days ago, or a few months ago at this
summer
stage.
Was in June.
Yes, pretty much.
A week in June. It's been it's been really, really depressing. I don't want to bandy that word around, but I think, it would bring you down a bit.
Yes.
The summer, isn't it? It's impacted business, it's impacting gardens, it's impacting people's, ability to get out and do stuff.
Absolutely. I'd say disheartening might be a better word, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of your garden, you've put in all the effort through the year and you just haven't got the rewards for it, or even time to sit out on it.
Yeah, but don't give up, because this weekend the temperature is going to rise, and heading into next week, it looks like the temperatures are going to be somewhat elevated. So there's still a bit bit going on there.
Yes, so traditional going back to school, sort of. A bit of weather comes along then.
Yeah, get the kids, get rid of them.
Yes, exactly. I time to relax
and get the picnic bench out and sit in your own and eat a ham sandwich. The Blue Moon. What's its connection to gardening and topics of gardens?
Yes, I suppose a lot of people like. There are a lot of superstitions around gardens, I suppose you would call them, and that. But I was reading up the last day, but apparently a blue moon, if you go picking berries or picking flowers during it, you're guaranteed eternal beauty.
Wow.
So it's worth a try anyway, sure.
I think it's a bit late for you, Paul. I think
quite possibly.
I think the die has been cast.
Yeah, the ship has sailed there, all right.
Yes.
So it has. But no, it's funny actually, and sort of like we're like in Donegal now, we're exposed to a lot more cultures and a lot. You see a lot more superstitions even through the garden centre.
Oh, we should do a show about superstitions because we don't do that enough anymore. Even just down to fairy trees alone, you could do an hour on that. Maybe we might get Professor Joe to have a conversation about superstitions, maybe ones particular to us here.
Yes,
if
absolutely.
By the way, this has got nothing to do with gardening, but if there is a superstition that you have that you will not vary on, and let us know 086 60 25,000, 086 60 25,000, and if it will incentivise you, I'll throw in a mug for one of those, a very rare 9 till noon show mug. But if you have any superstitions as it relates to the garden or whatever, stuff that you will not by hook or by crook go against, let us know. 086 60 25,000. All right, so the Blue Moon, obviously that's associated with some superstition. Now, my hanging baskets look fantastic. They look better than any other year.
Right, very good.
Full of flowers. I never deadheaded them. I never took anything out of them. I never watered them.
Yeah.
I swear to God.
You get the water
and they've never looked as good.
Yes, funny. You're in that side of the coin. I'm on the other side. I actually painted the house and took them down there last couple of weeks ago, and I never even bothered putting them back up again.
I think it's where they're at because they get the rain, but they don't get direct rainfall.
Yeah.
And I think there's a bit of a greenhouse effect going on because they're kind of semi under clear plastic.
Yes, I know what you mean.
And I think it's actually just worked really, really
That's
well.
probably amplifying the sunshine for them, and also.
But there's still plenty of colour around.
Yes, absolutely. There's plenty of colour around. Stuff like roses are going, and this time of year, dahlias especially are looking brilliant.
Okay. So what should we be doing now? Freshening up our beds again? What does that entail?
Yeah, pretty much just generally if your sort of shrub beds and borders are looking a wee bit untidy or a wee bit sort of bedraggled looking, the best thing to do is just sort of cut back anything that is looking a bit scraggly and sort of maybe freshen up the mulch or something on them, and just a wee bit of work now will keep them looking better into the winter.
Yeah. What's the situation with lawns? Now, the bit in front of my house, my son didn't do it at all. Doing his bit for the bees, he might argue. I think he's just a lazy git. But anyway, 1 foot long grass had to be dealt with yesterday. It's still mostly under my fingernails. There seems to be plenty of growth there around still.
Yes, there is a good bit of growth there, all right. Probably it'll be slowing down from now on, pretty much. So,
1 or 2 cuts, maybe.
Pretty much. If it comes mild now, you'd still be cutting up to Halloween.
Okay.
So you'd be chatting maybe another 3, if you know what I mean. But sort of raise the blades of the lawnmower a wee bit now, and that'll put less stress on the grass as you go along, basically. And just keep an eye on drainage. If drainage is an issue in your garden, maybe make sure any drains you have are working.
Yeah.
Just to stop the water building up over the winter.
And what about anything that might offset the risk of the moss returning through the winter? Is there anything we can do now to assist in that regard?
Yeah, pretty much. If you give it even if you have a bit of moss in the garden, give it a run with a scarifier, and it'll sort of remove the moss and let air move more freely through the grass, and should stop it sort of building on top of the existing moss through the year.
Yeah, and they can be hired as well.
Absolutely, aye.
Actually, if you go to our Facebook page right now, you'll see loads of ads from a great local company that are able to lease this kind of stuff out, hire it out really cheaply.
And they're actually they're as easy to use as a lawnmower. So they are. So it is just it's a good idea if you have a build up of moss now to treat it now, and it'll stop being worse next spring, basically.
All right, hedge cutting season begins tomorrow.
Yes, 1st of September's hedge cutting season. Sort of. It doesn't really impact on sort of wee garden hedges, if you know what I mean. But if you have a bigger job around your property, you can cut hedges from tomorrow. And cutting hedges this time of year is great in the sense that it lets it put on a wee bit of growth now before the winter comes in. So it leaves it sort of looking fresher through the winter period.
Greg, can you ask Paul, is there any low maintenance flowers suitable for window baskets for autumn winter? That comes in from Mary.
Yes, absolutely. There are a good few options there.
What's a window basket?
A window basket? Well, I suppose you get all sorts of different flowers, but I'd say they're probably combining the window box and window basket.
Oh, yes, okay, yes, of course it is. I couldn't make I couldn't make that connection.
But no, you get all sorts of different pots and things now, if you know what I mean.
That can stay out over winter and have a wee bit of colour to them.
Yeah, pretty much. Like so your winter pansies are perfect for it, and you get cyclamen there would be quite good, or even you get sort of miniature heathers would actually look quite well. But sort of through the autumn winter period, people rely more on the greens and with a bit of flower because you won't get the same sort of vibrancy as you get in the summer. But so we
still look beautiful.
Absolutely, and you incorporate bits of ivy and stuff in it that come down over the front. You know, can be quite nice. I
just wanted to ask about hydrangea that had very little flowers this year. Normally blooms very good. Maybe Paul could tell me. Thank you. Love the show.
Yes. Hydrangeas, sometimes you do get years like that. This year there's been sort of less sunshine, so maybe that's impacted on it. But what I would do at the end of autumn or even in the early spring, give it a good cut it back quite hard, and that should sort of reinvigorate the whole plant and give it a good feed as well.
Can tomatoes get blight? What are the symptoms and what are the remedies if so?
Yes, tomatoes can get two different types of blight. You get early blight and late blight. It's quite common for them to get late blight about this time of year as the fruit all the energy's gone into the fruit, so it leaves the rest of the plant susceptible to blight. No real remedies at this time of year in the sense that you don't want to be spraying your tomatoes with anything because you're going to pick them and eat them obviously in the near future. So this time of year generally you can sort of harvest them, and it's important to remove all of the foliage and get it away and put it away far from where you'll be growing tomatoes next year because the blight can reinfect basically. So late blight I would be slow to treat it. So it would be just sort of harvest what you can. Pretty much.
Right, okay. And you will know if the fruit's spoiled, obviously, will you?
It shouldn't really affect the fruit that much. You'd see it more in the leaf. You'll see sort of browny black spots coming on the leaves, and just sort of remove the leaves at that point.
Yeah, okay. Another question about hydrangeas. They did not reflower after last winter. Is there anything that can be done?
Pretty much just give them a good feed. I would say at this stage and hope for better next year. Even the springtime there, give them a feed that's good, high in potash, which should encourage flowering for next year.
When is the right time and how much should you cut back an apple tree?
Right time for cutting back an apple tree. Generally, you should in late winter. I would be slow to cut it back now, because if you cut it back now, it's actually going to regrow a bit, and then that growth will be sort of susceptible to the cold in the winter. So it would be leave it until sort of after the first frost into December or so.
So really what happens is just because there's a science to all of this, I presume, you are cutting it back when it has its lowest life, almost like in hibernation, so that when it starts to go, right, new season, I need to start growing, it's set and ready to go.
Yeah, pretty much. You're just sort of resetting the plant as you go along. So in terms of how to do it, first steps, it's very hard without seeing an individual tree. Like it is a profession in itself, pruning apple trees. So it is. So without seeing the tree, but generally the first thing to do is remove any sort of dead or diseased timber on it, and after that any crossing branches where they'll be rubbing. Where the branches rub can actually introduce infection into the plant.
Now, just for those of you watching the show on YouTube or Facebook, you can comment there, by the way, on all the platforms, and the messages come straight through to the studio. So feel free to ask questions live if you have any. Doesn't matter which platform you're watching on, I have access to them here. How do you stop slugs from eating vegetables in my greenhouse? They keep eating my tomatoes, my lettuce, and my other plants.
Yes, slugs, especially this year, slugs have been very active because of the damp weather. They love that, so they do. Generally, there are a few remedies. You can get organic pellets now, which aren't the same as the oil blue pellets that used to actually kill everything around it, basically. So you can use sort of organic pellets. Otherwise, you can use your beer traps or your milk traps to trap them, basically physically remove them. Or the other effective way would be to actually create fences. Either use copper to go around them or even Vaseline around the bottom of the plants can help to keep them back. However, the only thing, by using any of them sort of barrier methods, you have to be sure that there are no slugs in it. You're creating a fence, and if the slug's inside the fence, he's in his happy place. Whereas if he's outside, you're happy enough.
So putting something in there really that's more attractive than what they really had it in there for.
Quite possibly. A lot of people now are using sheep wool pellet, which is like basically pellets sheep wool, which have a few uses in the sense that they sort of retain water and then they're released slowly, which helps keep your plants watered. But as they sort of take in the water, they form sort of a felt that the slugs won't seem to cross. So they'd be a new sort of organic method of dealing with
until such time as the slugs figure this out and evolve and just go no bother.
You'd be able to jump or something.
Exactly. I have a climbing rose. How much of it should I cut back? It didn't flower great this year, so I'm wondering, should I cut it back well or just leave it as is?
Yes, no, sort of. I would leave it now for about another month or so, but then I would actually cut it back quite hard. Cut it back to maybe within 2 foot of the ground. It's very hard without seeing the plant, but generally within sort of 2 to 3 feet of the ground, I would cut it right back to there and like say, hopefully reset the plant and see how it comes on next year.
There's still apples on my trees. Should I pull them off now, or how long should they be left on?
Pretty much I would tend to leave them on, in the sense it's a fine line, in the sense that I would leave them on to allow them to ripen fully and probably to sweeten up as best you can. But you need to be sort of, at this time of year, wasps are very active, so you need to watch them for wasp damage. Wasps can actually eat them and sort of destroy your fruit. Or even a one day night comes along and blows them off, and then if they're sitting on the ground, like our friends the slugs will get them. So I would leave them on for as long as possible, but if they start falling off their own accord, I would pick them at that
Can
stage.
you give them just a sort of like a gentle toll?
Pretty much.
Pull and see what kind of resistance is there. Like, can they not tell you when they're ready to go?
Pretty much. I think you reach for the apple and turn it 45 degrees.
Yes.
And if it comes off at that point, it's ready to go.
Yes.
And if it stays on at that point, leave it a while.
Did you ever do the thing whereby you rotate, once the apple is there, you rotate the apple through the letters of the alphabet? Each rotation is a letter, A, B, C, D, right? Whatever pops off, that's the first letter of someone you might end up going out with, right?
Yes.
And then
I was going to say, I remember doing it, but I couldn't remember the reason.
Yeah, and then you get it, and then you tap it on the skin, A, B, C, D, E, F, and then when it goes through, that's it. So if it was G and H,
very good, very
it'd
good.
be me, you see. Right. Did anyone else do that? I haven't done it for about 40 years, but anyway. When do you stop cutting the lawn? I know you've touched on this, but you can't beat a specific answer to a specific question. And it is one of those ones, A, people want to do the right thing, but B, want to know when they can. And can I just say one thing, by the way? And I'm speaking here on behalf of lawn mower repairers all over the world. If you can, get your lawnmower serviced over the winter. Because as soon as the sun comes out in April or something, there's about 1 million crappy old lawnmower stuck outside these premises, and everyone wants it to mow the lawn the next day. So if we're going to do it, and I very rarely do, if we're going to get our lawnmower service at the end of the season, do it through the winter.
Absolutely.
I won't need it till April or March.
I'm sure they'd greatly appreciate that, all right, because like you say, they're just surrounded by lawnmowers in April time.
Scratching in September, and then lawnmowers everywhere in April. But anyway, back to the lawn.
Generally, sort of, as a rough idea, you're probably chatting around Halloween, but it's very much dictated by the weather. In terms of if you get a mild September, you could be cutting on a wee bit longer. So you could.
And it doesn't. I don't really care how it looks. Like as I said to you before, I have a sort of like it's a flattened field with grass on it as such. But as long as it's relatively short, you'll always get patches that grow a bit more than others.
Absolutely.
It's about how.
Yeah, it's about how diligent you are with it, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. I grew lilies this year and they grew great, tall and strong. When should I cut them back? They are still in flower.
Oh, well, if they're still in flower, obviously leave them, shall we say. You could sort of tidy them as you go along, because sometimes the outer foliage gets a wee bit, sort of turns a bit yellow. So
I know how that feels.
But nip that off and just let them flower on. And whenever they're finished flowering, you can actually cut them right back.
Could you ask Paul when to plant a holly tree? And do I need a male and a female for berries?
Plant a holly tree any time of the year, in terms of you can get them in garden centres and pots, so you can plant them any time of year. Traditional would be sort of now or early spring. Generally, I think it's the female produces the berries. So it is. So it's. But most ones you buy in garden centres will be pretty much designed to be female, if you know what I mean. And there's generally, in a sort of rural community like ours, there's plenty to do the pollinating and that around, if you know what I mean.
Yes, indeed.
Once again, getting back to your superstition, the holly, there's more superstitions around holly.
Go on.
It would take a whole show, so it would.
Right.
But in terms of very unlucky to cut down, so there would be now.
So
we wouldn't.
Would you cut holly?
Not a hope. So they wouldn't. No.
I mean, you're really quite firm.
Oh, absolutely no. A friend of mine actually tried to cut one day, and the chain of the chainsaw came off and just caught him in the ear.
Oh my God. Any other stories like that? Obviously, if it's not horrendous, 08660 25,000.
He went up the following day to retrieve his chain, and he says where he touched the holly tree was repaired.
No.
Yeah, so that's sand. That was the holly tree still standing.
I want more of this. 08660 25,000. All right. So you would not go near a holly tree?
No. Okay. Not.
Where can I buy a lilac rose?
Lilac rose, generally, most garden centres should have. Most garden centres get the roses in early in spring. We'll be ordering sort of in December months to come in spring. So if you want someone specific, probably chat to your garden centre while they're doing the ordering, probably late November, December. Because generally we get them in early in the year and they'll be sort of picked through at this stage almost.
Okay, I get you. Cole says, my superstition by coincidence would be to never cut down a holly tree. Very bad luck. What's a holly tree? I don't want to cut one down by accident.
Right.
So where would I find one? Make sure I don't have one.
Generally, pretty much any native hedge around here is going to have them in through it. Ooh. They're sort of the dark green glossy by, the Christmas sort of thing. Yeah. So some of them produce red berries, some of them don't. So that's the male and female thing.
Ah, yes, indeed. I know them now.
Yeah.
My suspicion belief is picking heather for good luck and keeping it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. White heather, but has been very lucky, all right.
Exactly. My suspicion belief is picking heather for good luck. Never know if it's true or just a myth, but I picked it and kept it to bring me some good luck. That comes in from Marie. Thanks for that. When I mow the lawn, there's a lot of white dead grass underneath. Can this be eradicated? Scarifying doesn't seem to be effective.
Right, scarifying should be effective at removing a lot of that. That's known as thatch. So generally, scarifying should help to remove that, all right. And a lot of time, if you are scarifying, as opposed to in all one direction, maybe do it one direction, sort of lift all the grass and all the stuff out of it, and then do it sort of across itself again. Then, so do it from two different directions will help to catch what the machine's missing the first time.
I have a self-pollinating apple tree. I have a self-pollinated apple tree. It produced one apple last year.
Right.
None this year. What can I do? I'm not laughing at you. Mm-hmm. It's just 2 years, one apple.
Yes.
It's not pollinating itself very well.
No, obviously
What's going on there?
Generally, Generally, a lot of those sort of self-pollinating apple trees, they've come out quite recently, so it may not be that old of a tree, if you know what I mean. But after 2 years, it should produce something, definitely.
So next year, we've problems.
Yeah, pretty much. A self-pollinating apple tree is actually two apple trees grafted onto one stem.
Yes.
So if you'd actually check the stem and make sure that the two are coming from above the joint, because maybe one has sort of died off and one apple has sort of taken over, which can happen times. But probably take a couple of photos of it and bring it to your local garden centre, and they should be able to diagnose something from that.
Should they bring the apple with them?
Well, I was going to say that apple's very precious, so it might have to stay at home.
Is there anywhere locally you can recycle grass? I love my garden, but getting rid of the grass is a huge issue. And now that I'm cutting back my hedge and trees for the last time this year, it's a real issue getting somewhere to put it all. Now, this is local to where we don't know. Mm-hmm. So across the county, are there points or places that you can dispose of this garden waste? I'm
not 100% sure, but I think Bryson's Recycling, who run the recycling centres for the council, there'll be like ones in Letterkenny, Mulford, Carndonagh, places like that. As far as I know, they take in garden waste.
Patrick on YouTube, so a fairy tree is a holly tree?
No, fairy tree generally would be a holly tree or a whitethorn.
Right, so the ones that are in the middle of fields and they just don't
generally
go anywhere.
They're whitethorns.
Right, okay.
Generally. I wouldn't touch one of them either.
No, I wouldn't go near one of them either. Patrick has a follow-up question. When and why to aerate a lawn?
Aerate a lawn anytime from now on, really. Ideally, it'll want to be quite dry, in the sense so you're not creating mud as you go.
Yeah.
But an aerator is, you get a machine called a plugger that puts wee holes in it, and that improves the drainage and sort of prevents moss over the winter. So pretty much now, if it dries up a bit, would be perfect next week even. Okay, so keep your superstitions coming in, not just garden related things that you wouldn't do, and stories too, like that horrific story of Paul's friend. Holly tree went to cut it, chainsaw went, clipped his ear, went back the next day to retrieve the chain, and where he had impacted on the holly, it had repaired itself. Okay, a lot of people well, listen, people might go, I don't believe any of that stuff. Mm-hmm. You say, well, go down and cut that tree in the middle of that field there. Absolutely.
It doesn't belong stiffening the cough, does it?
Yes.
All right, keep them coming into us. 086 60 25,000. We'll do one more anyway, will we, before the season's out? Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, because we're still in growth period. No,
absolutely.
I think it's nice to have
if the weather comes good, there should be plenty of jobs to do anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly, of course. All right, Paul will be back with us, but for now, Paul McLaughlin, gardener at Ballaghdare Garden Centre, thank you so very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook, and at highlandradio.com. The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union. Digital loans now available. Apply online or via our app today and get your loan transferred directly to your current account.
These days, we're all looking for healthy, tasty family meals and lots of variety. The good news is that our fishermen continue to bring us the best of the catch, like fresh Irish hake and haddock. There are so many ways to enjoy them. Try delicious Thai curry with hake or mouth-watering Cajun seasoned haddock. For lots of tasty recipes and different meal ideas, visit boardbeer.ie and look out for Irish hake and haddock next time you're shopping. Fresh ideas, great meals.
Are you worried about trees on your property? Northwest Forestry Services Ballybuffet are fully insured and have over 40 years experience in dangerous tree removal, tree felling, surgery and stump grinding. For peace of mind, call Northwest Forest Services Ballybuffet for a no obligation quotation on 9132033.
You could run, you could dance, or you could just breathe. The Bernardo's Big Active, supported by Aldi, is happening in schools across Ireland right now, and it makes doing good feel great. It gets classmates of all ages active while supporting their mental health and well-being. The Bernardo's Big Active, supported by Aldi, will raise vital funds to help Ireland's most vulnerable children.
Sign up today at bernardos.ie/Big Active.
Where's the party? Bundoran presents Ireland's biggest indoor dancing festival, the World Matchmaking Festival, in 4 venues for 10 days, 10 nights, September 29th to October 8th. Starring 35 bands, including the Tumbling Paddies, Derek Ryan, David James, Declan Nerney, plus Blind Date and Speed Dating. Book now for accommodation and entertainment package deals. Log on to showtours.ie or call 0818 300 888. Meet your match in Bundoran. Very special guest from Lisdoonvarna, the world-famous matchmaker Willie Daly.
Now, this Saturday, the 2nd of September, will see cinemas across the Republic of Ireland celebrate National Cinema Day. Cinemas across the country will celebrate the day with admission tickets at participating cinemas reduced to just €4, including premium seat screens and 3D screenings. The 2023 initiative is supported by Screen Ireland. And to discuss this, we're joined in studio by Mark Doherty, Director of Century Complex in Letterkenny. And you guys... constant expansion and investment.
Yeah, we're going again. Good morning, Greg. How are you? Yes, we're going again. I suppose it's more family entertainment is what we're doing, and we like to keep moving, and we like to keep trying to innovate and trying to bring the best we can to Letterkenny and Donegal in general.
Yeah, and it's so important too that we have indoor options given our climate, because even in the summer, you know, I think lots of us were like, well, what are we going to do now? Because it's bucketed down.
Wasn't July and August lovely?
It was fantastic for you.
It was just great. It was.
What are you building now on?
It's more family entertainment. The centrepiece of that is going to be indoor golf. Slight twist on it, so we're looking forward to doing that. There's a range of other activities that we're putting in as well, but we're still finalising those contracts. So,
it's very good.
So it should be fun.
Yeah, the old song, what is it? Video killed the radio star. Lots of people predicted the demise of cinema with on-demand streaming and all that kind of stuff. But it's not the case at all. Cinema still is a really important part of life. The attendances figures are good. And in some areas it's gone from strength to strength, which is good, isn't it? Cause I think it's because it's an experience. It's not simply a film.
Yeah, it is an experience. It's a night out. And that's what cinema is about. It's a night out with, family, with friends, with partners, with prospective partners. It's all those things, and it's a night out. You can go out, you can enjoy yourself, and go home, and it's not late, and it's about that. So we have to try and cinemas have to try and make that experience as enjoyable as possible, to keep up with the new technology and the new innovations, and to give people that night out. So the Benedictine cinema's been dead from the 70s or something. I think TV came out, cinema was dead.
I think they're kind of giving up on that now because it's clear it's not. But it's not an area that has just sat in its laurels. Though obviously you have to have the latest screens, the latest sounds, the latest experience. You have to offer different seating products and all that kind of stuff. I mean, if you did stand still, you could be in bother, but you have to keep innovating too, don't you? And moving with the trends.
That's the same with any business or anything. You have to keep moving. It's like a radio station. A radio station has to keep innovating, and cinema has to do that as well. So we try to keep bringing new things, new experiences, new, as you say, new seating, new screens, new sound systems. You try to keep doing that to give the public the best experience we possibly can.
What about you? How does someone get into being a cinema operator? Like, is this something that you wanted to do, or does it help that you have a love of films, or what was your path into this
summer job?
Yeah,
that was my path on. My first job in cinema was in Derry, my hometown, and it was Star Wars. And it was a big old cinema called the Palace that used to be there on Shipley Street. I think there's a bar there now, but Shipley Street, and it was a big, massive 2,000-seater cinema, and they ran Star Wars for 4 or 5 shows a day. And one of my jobs was to help show people to their seats. I think it was the year between.
Did you have a torch?
I had a torch.
Wow.
I had a torch, yeah. Actually, do you remember the old ice cream trays?
Yes.
I had one of those too. So it was one of those. I think it was everybody was roped in for those 4 or 5 weeks of Star Wars, and I was grabbed somewhere along the line, and we had good fun.
Did you open the cinema on the Port Road in the early 80s or start working there?
No, there was a cinema there. It was built in 35, I believe. It was called La Scala originally, by the same company that owns this one now at the moment. And they opened there in 35. I believe it was the early 80s. They went from a single screen to 2 screens. And then we went to 3 screens and then to 4 screens. And then the company made the move down to the existing site. So it's been an evolution all the way down the line.
Yeah, and it is unbelievable. In space, obviously, then you require space, of course. And
you do.
You need
cinemas
to be able to expand.
Yeah, cinemas are big building. And we took opportunities when they were presented to buy additional space around us. And that what allowed us to increase the size of the cinema, add the screens, do what we're doing now, put on the play centre, the restaurant, and everything we're now doing. So it's all about giving that entertainment.
Rightly so. Big IT companies get lots of credit for their employment, factories, call centres and stuff. But I think sometimes the contribution to employment that retail makes, hotels, bars, and the likes of your complex makes, I don't think sometimes it's really is recognised quite as it should be. In terms of employment, you must have a huge team of staff, which is only going to grow from here.
We do. We have a big team of staff, big hardcore full-time staff, and then a lot of part-time staff. I think our current head count between full-time and part-time is around about 95 at the moment. Now, a lot of those are young people doing their Saturday jobs and doing their Sunday jobs. But it's a lot of people, and yes, we will be added on. But there's a whole lot more Indigenous companies around the country that you never hear mentioned or you take for granted.
That's it, yeah.
That are employing a lot of people.
Exactly, like you can get a shop open and it could be creating 40 jobs and there's barely a pip. Now, we do try as much as we can here to platform it, but if that were a call centre or something, it's like you'd have the Taoiseach up cutting the string. You know what I mean?
You would. And then Indigenous companies, tend to hang on to people. Big companies at times can be quite ruthless, whereas local companies say, well, no, we'll ride this out and see where we're going.
So what is Century Complex doing then for National Cinema Day?
Okay, National Cinema Day is on Saturday, and like every other cinema in the country, admission prices are €4 across the board. Doesn't matter what you're going to see, what screen it's on, and what sort of seating's there. Simple €4, and it's a way for us and the cinema industry in general to say thank you. Because we wouldn't exist without the customers who come through our front doors every day of the week, day in and day out. So this is a way of us all getting together and say, listen, thanks very much.
All right, okay. There's going to be huge demand on some of the shows.
Some of the shows are currently sold out. Some of the VIP screens and the premiere screens are gone. So if you're looking for that experience, check to see what's currently available. Other screens are selling fast and are going fast. So it's good to see people coming and take advantage of the offer.
Do you see the next big innovation in the cinema world?
I suppose there's a lot of discussion and a lot of debate about that at the moment. As an industry, the focus this last number of years has been on the digitisation. We're moving over to digital projectors. We're now moving into our third generation of those. Those are moving into high definition. There's a bit of sound is starting to become an issue again, but you can push that so far. Seating is a big issue at the moment, so it's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
It's not
But there's not a game changer thing that the industry expects in the next week.
Not that I see at the minute. Not from a solely cinema perspective.
Yeah,
I see a move to grouping entertainment together.
Yeah.
So it's different. Cinemas, it's restaurants, it's play centres.
That's what you're already well established in that space, and then tying in a night out, something to eat. There's a show, and on it goes.
Yeah.
And just in terms of 3D, now I've different vision in my eyes, so I've never really been able to take much interest in it. I remember Sky and the BBC invested so much in this notion that everyone would be in a pub watching the football with 3D glasses on, and that went down the way. And then the BBC stopped investing in 3D at all. But in terms of cinema, has it got an established market there? Like, is it a technology that, I mean, obviously because you show the films and people come in, but it's not the mainstream, is it?
It's not the mainstream.
Or the mainstay of it.
No, I mean the mainstay of cinema has always been and will always be, a decent film,
Good
with a
film.
decent story.
Yeah.
That's always going to be it. Now, some films will lend themselves to 3D, and in which case you'll throw them that, so they will enhance the experience. Other films just won't. I think 3D doesn't do anything for them. It just, okay, well, why is that there?
Yeah.
Whereas your good old-fashioned horror or your disaster movie, it can enhance that experience and give you more of a feeling. My suspicion, and it's only my suspicion, will probably be virtual reality, and that end of things will probably be the next one. But I think that's a bit away yet.
But that's also unproven because even though Meta are investing so heavily in personal sort of headsets, for an example. But I'm involved, I like gaming and all that kind of stuff, but it hasn't really caught on. Even the PlayStation VR headset, people don't want to sit for prolonged periods of time. They want to immerse themselves in something, but they don't want to lose the contact with the world around them. Do you know what I mean? So I actually have, and I'm really open-minded to technology. I have my reservations about sort of how that. But listen, this is exciting. Who's to say what might come along?
You don't know,
could be.
but we're social animals.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
we love company. We love, even if we're not talking, we love company. We love to be sitting and sharing an experience with other people, whether that's in a cinema, whether that's remotely, whether you're at home and somebody else is in their home playing the game. We like that. Do we really want to be playing with make-up people?
I don't
know.
I really don't think it's going to catch on, and I could be proven wrong, but I just, as soon as you start removing people from that social space, even at home, like I have was one of the early adapters of the PlayStation VR, you do the roller coasters and you do that, and after that you don't, because you don't want to be locked out of someone walking into the room.
I like the experience. It's like a good old horror film, and you're sitting there and somebody down the middle of the hall sort of jumps and screams out of nowhere. You do.
Yeah, exactly.
It enhances the whole experience.
All right, okay. If people want to check availability and what's on, I presume go to the website, Mark.
Go straight to the website. It'll give you all the films that are listed for tomorrow. Go on to our app on your mobile phone. You can see exactly what's on. You can book your seats. And you can do it from there.
Yeah, and it's right across the industry. All Irish cinemas are involved in this if you're a bit further removed listening to us today. Mark Doherty, Director of Century Complex, Letterkenny, thank you so much.
Great,
and
thank you very
continued success.
Thank you,
and growth. Back shortly.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering mortgages from 40,000 to 600,000 euro with no hidden fees or transaction charges. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127.
Hi, Clelia Murphy here. Please take part in Bewley's Big Coffee Morning Social for Hospice on Thursday, 21st of September by hosting a coffee morning for your local hospice. To register and host a coffee morning, please call 0818 995 996 or visit hospicecoffeemorning.ie. And remember, every euro raised locally stays locally.
Michael Murphy here, wishing Pádraig Kelly all the best in his retirement from iMotors. From all the team at iMotors.
Big news for back to school. The Centra Big Brand sale is now on, with big savings on big brands you love, like selected Kellogg's cereal half price, like Rice Krispies now €3.12, Fitzgerald's Bagel Slim 6-pack €1 each, and Yoplait Petit Flou Big Pots and Froobs €2 each. So shop smart, feel good. Centra. Live every day.
The Donegal Cheviot and Cheviot Cross Breeders Group will hold their annual sale of Cheviots, Cheviot Mules, Suffolk Cross Cheviots and Cheviot Cross Blackface Hogged Ewes and Ewe Lambs on Friday the 1st of September at Stranorlar Mart. Sale is at 6 p.m. The sales will also be online on the Mart I app. This ad is kindly sponsored by Lynch Brothers Northwest Plant Hire Limited, Buncrana.
We are now in our last week and your last few chances to win big with Highland Radio this summer.
€2,500 will be given away on the Naughty Alarm Clock this Friday, 1st of September.
But that's not all, because we've left the biggest prize until last. Can you imagine winning €10,000 in cash?
Greg Hughes will be calling one lucky person on Friday the 1st of September at 11:30. Have you bought your ticket yet?
Go to highlandradio.com, click on the link, answer a simple question and purchase your ticket. But hurry, lines close this Friday.
What would you do with €10,000 in cash?
And tickets are still available. And don't worry if you don't want to be called. You don't have to come on and speak on the radio. It'd be lovely if we can get a chat to the winner, but that's not part of it. So don't let that discourage you from buying your tickets. You don't have to come on the radio if you don't want to. It's lovely to find out a bit about the person that wins, but as I say, it's not part of it, if you know what I mean. So you can just buy your tickets and you don't have to worry about coming on the radio. It's just literally a draw, and that's it. And as I say, if the person wants to come on and say hi, fantastic. But it's, as I say, it's not a function of the whole thing. You can get your tickets right now on our website, highlandradio.com. Click the Summer Cash Draw. Buy your tickets there. If you can do so for fun and well within your means, a tenner each. One could be enough, but you can buy 5, get 1 for free. Buy 8, get 2 for free if you want to group in with family and increase your chances, whatever way you want to do it. Highlandradio.com is the place to go right now. If you want us to process it over the phone, you can give us a call right now, 07491 25,000, 07491 25,000, or call up to us here, Mountaintop in Letterkenny. You can buy your tickets here from us, and it's all done and dusted. This time tomorrow it's over. So if you want to be in with a chance to win £12,500, £2.5 grand with Lee, 10 grand with me, then buy your tickets right now. And we've brought so much joy to people over the last 3 weeks. 3 of our wonderful listeners, each with €2,500 in their bank accounts, back pockets. Don't know where it is. Doesn't really matter. They have it anyway, so that's great. Okay, so if you want to get involved, and it's completely up to you, get in touch with us right now via our website. Okay. This is a ridiculous statistics as they're comparing apples and oranges. Long-term rentals advertise once every few years and are gone in days, whereas short-term holiday rentals are permanent adverts, always there. In every place in the world, of course, there will therefore be more short-term than long-term adverts. The only intelligent statistic would be over a 3-year period. There were X long-term, Y short-term ads. And can I add to that, listener, because I don't disagree with you. You also need to take out tents. You need to take out, it has to be full livable properties, because even some of these converted sheds or whatever are classed as full properties, which wouldn't be suitable for long-term rent. So that needs to be weeded out as well. Tom Foley is consultant psychiatrist with Inishowen CAMHS and joins us now. Tom, good morning to you.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for having me on.
I'm sure for anyone involved in CAMHS and anyone working in it locally, it's a tough day, isn't it? Reading the reports and obviously the reports focus on the negative elements of the work. It's a difficult day for all involved, I'm sure, in CAMHS in this health region.
Well, I think it does make difficult reading some of the things in the report, Greg, but I think overwhelmingly, the people involved with CAMHS really welcome the report, because I think finally it gives us kind of the attention on CAMHS that we really want at a national level. And it also highlights some of the really good things that are going on in CAMHS within the region. And it gives us a chance to talk about that, to draw attention to it, and also hopefully to get broader support for the things that we're trying to do. So while it is concerning, I think there's a lot to be reassured about, and I think also it's really welcome that this has happened.
Yeah, we'll talk about the positives in a moment, Tom. But I mean, we're speaking and had contact from people within the industry saying they're burnt out. They're working 12-hour shifts. They're under-resourced. And they're just at breaking point. They're burnt out completely. Is that a familiar picture to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would recognise that. I think for a long, long time, CAMHS within mental health nationally has been, relatively underfunded and understaffed. And I think on top of that, with the pandemic, we've had a huge increase in referrals into CAMHS because it's been such a difficult time for young people and their families. I mean, that's led to, the need to kind of prioritise certain cases over others. It's led to people perhaps overworking. And that in turn then leads to an increased turnover in staff. And that comes on top of the sort of background situation where it is really hard to recruit people in Donegal. So, I mean, all of that does combine to make it kind of a difficult place to work and a difficult time to work in the service. But also the staff that are working in CAMHS are absolutely passionate about helping the young people, and they get a lot of energy from working with those young people and their families. So I wouldn't say that it's all negative by any means. It's a job that we love doing, and you have to take that into account as well.
Is there an issue with recruitment and I suppose retention, i.e. are there positions funded and advertised that can't be filled at the moment?
there are, I think, across almost all the teams in the whole country, there are vacancies that are difficult to fill. And traditionally it's been a funding problem, but it's also been difficult to recruit, particularly in rural areas like Donegal. And we're constantly trying to recruit people and try new and sort of innovative ways to attract people into the region. And I suppose it's something that maybe your listeners can have an opportunity to help with. If there's anybody there listening who has a friend or a family member who's had to leave the region to go and have an opportunity to work in a CAMHS service, then, I'd encourage them to get in touch with those relatives and tell them that now is a really good time to come back. And, I can tell you from personal experience that I did that. I was away for 20 years and I came back, and, I haven't regretted it. And I think it's a really exciting time to come back and work in CAMHS, So I think we have to be thinking outside the box in terms of how we get people in to work with us.
Now, Tom, and you can help me in this, in supporting you and those working within CAMHS, and also in giving people who've been frustrated with it a platform to speak. I don't want to give the impression that people aren't being seen, that people aren't being helped, that CAMHS isn't open for business here in this region. So you might talk to that just to ensure that I don't, in trying to help, discourage anyone or make anyone feel any worse than they might already feel. So you can offer, I'm sure, reassurance that children and young people are being seen and there is help there. Could you talk to that a little bit, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have done a lot of work on waiting lists over the last couple of years, and we've really had a big impact on reducing waiting lists. I particularly work in Inishowen, and we've got the waiting list down such that almost nobody is waiting over 3 months currently. And, as of last week, we had less than 10 people waiting. So we've been really successful in kind of getting people in and getting them seen more quickly. And for those young people who are risky or who really need to be seen quickly, we are seeing them very, very quickly, so that service is there. Now, it's not just CAMHS. It can be confusing for families looking for help. And I suppose when CAMHS is in the media, people think CAMHS is the only source of help. But we have a lot of partner organisations that we work with who also see young people with mental health difficulties and who support families. That's a whole range of community and voluntary organisations, as well as the more statutory organisations like Jigsaw, Primary Care Psychology. And, the general practitioners who we work with really closely are in a really good position to work out where, somebody's needs can be best met. But, I would like to reassure people that if they need help, help is available. We always want to improve, and we have a lot of room to improve, as this report shows. But, we will be there for the patients that we need to help.
Tom, you talked of, and you're a case in point of someone who went to work elsewhere, returned here. Who needs to do more to get that message out, I wonder? Is it CAMHS themselves, or is it HSE to say, look, there are opportunities here, come back. It'll be a good working environment for you because the more people working in it, it'll help everyone. And you talked about thinking outside the box in terms of recruitment. Again, who do we need to be appealing to do that? Is it something that happens locally within CAMHS? Is it the local health group? Is it the HSE? What is the pathway to the initiatives you think we need to be employing?
Well, I mean, I think there's a role for people at every level here. Nationally, the HSE has a role in attracting people back and attracting people to come and work here. But I think if we really want to have the services that we can have in Donegal, locally and regionally, we need to do more to attract those people as well, and that means having recruitment campaigns for people who are already trained, but it also means having pathways into these different professions, for people who are at school, who want to be nurses or psychiatrists or psychologists or OTs or speech and language therapists. We should make it clear that there is a way that they can do that, and there's a way that they can do it and make their life here, close to where they've grown up, or that this can be an attractive place.
Are there full-time contracts available? If so, how many?
Well, there are vacancies, certainly in all of those professions that I just mentioned to you. I don't have the figures offhand as to how many, but, if there were people who had an interest in coming to work in CAMHS, who were qualified in those professions, then, I would welcome them getting in touch with their local CAMHS and asking what opportunities are out there, because we definitely do have vacancies. And I think with the attention and the extra funding that these recent reports are likely to bring, there may be more opportunities in the future.
Colin says, no psychiatrist in CAMHS Donegal, no support anymore.
Well, I'm a psychiatrist in Inishowen, and there's another psychiatrist in CAMHS in Letterkenny. We are looking to recruit another psychiatrist, and that would be one of those opportunities that I mentioned. But it is a constant challenge because over time people move on. And we need to identify people to fill
Northern
those
Ireland,
positions.
Tom? Do you lose staff to people who can nip over the border and work in mental health services there?
I don't think that's been a huge problem.
Okay.
I think the challenge for us is probably for people, who want to work in the big cities and want to work close to the big academic centres. Maybe we lose more people in that direction.
Okay, listen, thank you for giving us a further insight into that. Is there anything in a minute that you want to clarify, Tom? Because, as I say, there's a lot of press out there that's focusing on certain elements of these reports, but in a minute, is there anything that you feel that would be fair for you to mention? And I hope you know, when we talk about things like this, Tom, it's the same with the hospital. We're here to support staff and anything we can do to help. We're not here to criticise or whatever. It's the system within an awful lot that this is being worked on that needs to be looked at, but it's not the people working in mental health services or working in acute services. They're doing amazing, very, very difficult work.
Thanks, Greg. I really appreciate that, and I think I'll take you up on that offer, because I'd really like to get the message out, not just when there's a report like this, but just generally about the work that we're doing. And just very quickly,
I'll tell you what
really
we'll do. We'll both return to that, Tom. Maybe even you can call in studio or join us on Zoom, and we'll talk about that.
Well, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, perfect.
I'd appreciate that.
And the last thing you wanted to say?
And look, I just really want to reassure young people and their families that the staff who are working in CAMHS are really passionate about helping them, and that is, they've chosen these careers because that's what they really love. And I think, we're now seeing the attention and the funding to match that passion nationally, and I think that's going to let us kind of realise the service improvement plans that we've got in place.
Okay. And we'll talk about that
really
more, Tom.
improve the service.
I have to head, and I appreciate that we got that in. Thank you very much indeed. Tom Foley, consultant psychiatrist with Inishowen CAMHS. Have a lovely Thursday. Back with you tomorrow, Friday, with all the usuals that you expect. Stay tuned. John Bresson's coming up next around the Northwest.